December 3rd, 2025, meeting of the Harwich Conservation Commission being held in the Don B. Griffin Room at Harwich Town Hall. Participation is possible in person in the room or online through GoToMeeting. Instructions for attending the GoToMeeting meeting are available on the agenda, which is posted on the Town of Harwich website. The town will be recording this meeting. Anyone else who intends to make audio and or video recordings of this meeting, please notify the chair. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda tonight is a notice of a change in plan for 35 Snow Inn Road, map 8, parcel F1, SE number 32-2569 for dock and stairway replacement and removal of invasive plants and native replanting. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Skipper Lee. Here for some clarification on the plan for Kim Manicherian at 35 Snow Inn Road. I just found the plan very confusing and wanted to clarify that the float would be 10 by 20 with 4 pilings, 1 piling on each corner, and that the dock itself in the drawing, it shows alternating mono pilings, which I don't know how to do that. So I just want to do regular bents, pilings, cross members, and run it out that way. So I do have, I know they're not on there, I do have another question though, if I could ask it.
Please go ahead.
So it says ACQ pilings on the plan. As far as I know, they've never made ACQ pilings. It's not saltwater approved, it would just rot. They don't even make ACQ anymore, and it goes back, I haven't done this in a long time, I got out of the business, that's coming back, but it goes back to the CCA conversation, whether we can use CCA or not, or whether it's no CCA treated pilings allowed, and that leaves you with Greenheart, which it's 18 trees out of the woods of Guyana rainforest. I prefer the renewable resource that we have here, and we cut the pilings off-site, and I think any of the real bad part of that is the cutting and the sawdust. That's when you have a problem with the CCA, but once it goes in the ground and it gets sealed, certainly leaches for a period of time. Some people say 30 days, and then it gets sealed with, whatever growth occurs on it. So I'm just wondering, is it Greenheart, or can I use CCA treated pilings?
Okay, thank you. Amy?
So the first part, Skipper brought it to our attention that the plan that we approved had conflicting sketches on it. One, the actual site plan itself did show alternating monopiles with only 3 piles holding the float, where it should have been 4 as well. But then the cross-section showed a cross-section with double piles, which is your more traditional dock proposal. So I think things just maybe have been copied and pasted a little bit wrong. We didn't catch it either. So in this, I would recommend that you allow him, because technically you have a plan that shows double pile vents on it, that you allow him to do the traditional dock design and the 4 piles holding the float. And then in terms of it recently also, somebody else other than you told me about, no ACQ piles, and that somebody had even said, whatever ACQ wood is actually leaches worse, even if
it's gone now. They don't even manufacture it anymore.
Okay.
As far as I know, not here.
Probably look at our regs anyways to redo that. So, So in terms of Greenheart or CCA, I have the same moral quandary in terms of, do we use Greenheart and destroy valuable resources elsewhere? Or do we have potentially, a little leaching coming out of these here in Harwich, which traditionally docks and bulkheads were constructed with CCA. The vast majority of what you see in the water is constructed with CCA. So I lean more towards allowing the CCA, which was probably originally used when this dock was originally created.
Okay, thank you. Wayne?
I don't really have any problem with changing it to getting rid of the monopiles and putting the the doubles in. I don't have any problem with it.
Do you have an opinion about CCA versus Greenheart?
Well, I don't know, not really. Green Hack comes out of the jungle, and the other one's probably southern yellow pine that's been treated.
Mm-hmm.
The leaching thing, I worked around this stuff most of my life, and I never saw a problem with it. Fix one, half dozen of them, really, in my mind.
Okay. Vivian?
I'll defer to these guys' expertise. I don't have any questions. Good catch.
I'm of the same opinion Wayne is.
So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah, whether you cut the timber in South Carolina or South America, what's different? It's still gonna get cut down. And then there's an impact to get it from there to here, so which is worse?
Yeah.
No questions from, I don't know. Yeah, I think the suggestions are,
Is that?
I think the suggestions are reasonable from.
Okay. Have a lot of people in the room. Anyone have questions, comments? Doesn't seem that way. I agree. I think I would prefer the local with some treatment. So, I don't know, can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the request for a change of plan for 35 Snow Inn Road, map 8, parcel F-1, 32-2569.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Just to clarify, that includes the allowance, well, we can either phrase it, they could use one or the other, or do you want to direct them to use CCA?
One or the other, as far as I'm concerned, either whatever they want to do.
Yep.
Sounds like
Okay.
what you want to do is CCA, so.
I'd rather use a renewable American product.
Fine.
Okay.
Me.
And Cape Cod takes a lot of trees out of the jungle, so it's unnecessary. You all
We'll-
set with me, is that right?
Yeah, we'll get you some documentation in a couple days.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays.
You too.
Me too.
Next, we have a notice of intent for 7 Shoal Hope Drive, map 4, parcel D1-11, for the construction of an addition to the house and expansion of an existing deck within the riverfront area.
Good evening, Lynn Hamlin for the applicant. I also see that they're with us virtually, the blocks. This project's fairly straightforward. There are 2 resource areas on the property, land subject to coastal storm flowage, which is bounded by the 11-foot contour, and the riverfront area. I assessed the backyard for a coastal bank, and I met the surveyor out there, and we did some transects. If you were out there, you'll notice that it was excavated probably a long time ago. It looks like for boat access. So we did it's old, it's historic. I did a transect in that area, and then I did a transect in the natural grade, because that didn't reflect natural grade, and they're both under the 10% slope to be considered steep enough to confine storm and flood water. So it doesn't meet the definition of a coastal bank. So we're just dealing with land subject to coastal storm flowage, and all this proposed work is outside of that. in the riverfront. They managed to tap into the very upper edge of the outer riparian zone. So the minimum setback for the proposed construction, which is an elevated deck, to the edge of the river is, I put my glasses on, I can read it, 181.6 feet. There is 1.8 square feet of foundation going in the riverfront, and there is 462.7 square feet of deck. Together, that is 464.5 square feet of increased footprint in the riverfront. According to your regulations, you want 2.1 or 2-to-1 mitigation for that. So we prepared a landscape mitigation plan. They just bought the property, the blocks, and they'd like to maintain that boat access, so I split the mitigation area on either side of a 10-foot wide swath, and proposed either a native or plants that are very pollinator friendly. I just noticed, well, I have a lot of resources I've collected over the years, and I'm finding that they disagree with each other as I go forward. It's 35 years of collecting information. But it's been recently pointed out to me that St. John's wort is not technically a native, but it's apparently one of the plants that they consider important to the bees that are dying off. It's very, they call it a bee magnet, and bees are very attracted to it, so it's a good plant anyway. And the same thing with the fothergilla. That's also a very pollinator-friendly plant. But as somebody once said to me, I don't want to die on this hill, so if Amy or other people have plants that they prefer, I have no problem swapping them out. And I'll try to answer questions.
Thank you. Amy?
We went out there at the highest of the high tides today, so we probably didn't see what could have, been potentially mistaken as a bank, but we know there's not a bank there. It's very shallow, the grade there. My only, it has nothing to do with the dwelling. On the north side of that access path to the water, it is all bittersweet. So I'm a little nervous about, nice new native mitigation plantings going in where kind of that vegetation line that you have marked on the plan there, that is really all bittersweet out there. So I just want to make sure that what they're planting is not just going to get very quickly overtaken there.
I would encourage you to write a condition to that effect.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say we could let them remove said bittersweet and continue to replant with natives, or at least seed with natives. Because on the south side of that access, it's pretty open to the property line, but it's very invaded in there. Actually didn't catch the St. John's wort. I always thought it was native myself too.
I have some sources that say it
Yeah.
is, and somebody pointed out to me, and like, oh yeah, the native trust, whatever, the new
Yeah.
people don't think it is.
The fothergilla, I know it's not particularly native here, but I have seen it growing on its own, not planted, in the Great Sand Lakes, so it seems to be naturalizing in the area. My only other one was what I wrote you, the rhododendron. It's technically, again, a southeastern species of rhododendron, but I think you meet the intent of the mitigation, and it's a well thought out list of plants, so I don't have any particular problem with it. And then in terms of the work itself, it's at its closest point, the deck is 181 plus or minus feet from the edge of the river, in the area of pretty much an existing deck and lawn area, and it's not going to have any impact to the riverfront area. So I would recommend approval. Oh, I can't recommend. Well, I would if I had a file number.
Oh, yeah, I'll get it tomorrow morning.
That's how it works.
Okay.
So we don't have a file number yet. In the event the state comes out with something crazy, we should not vote on it tonight.
Okay.
Okay. Sophia?
I think it's a really strong plant list, and like you said, it's like, you can check certain websites for different data, decisions on whether they're native and where they're native to. I think that rhododendron justice split hairs whole pine is native to Massachusetts, just not here.
Oh, okay.
But I think they're all strong plants that
Mhm.
will do well, so that'd be beneficial. But
I have no issue with it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Did we wanna add the condition on the bittersweet before we get the DEP number?
That would be, if you do approve it, it would be a condition on the approval. Yeah.
Got nothing to add?
So I just have a question about the bittersweet, just in relation to the plan. In the plan, as Anna was saying, the bittersweet is on the north side of the path.
Mhm.
And in the plan, you show these mitigation areas on either side of something that's outlined in green. And that, you are outlining and not including the bittersweet in the mitigation area? Do I interpret that correctly?
Well, I rely heavily on the survey plan, and so I was out on the site, but then I look at the plan, I'm relying on the surveying field location of the lawn area.
Mm.
So that's what I'm relying on.
So that that little vacant area, John, is the area of bittersweet, which
Yeah, right.
wouldn't have been picked up, or would have been picked up as not lawn, essentially, so.
So it's adjacent to. I still
Yeah.
should be, my intent was to put
No,
all these
you're,
plants in
you
lawn.
planned it around it,
Okay,
you showed plans.
around it,
I
right.
would suggest potentially even in lieu of having it here or here, or if they wanted to just do all of it, that we do it, that they remove the bittersweet and replant that area.
They're right there if you'd like to talk to them.
Hello, owners. So there's a small area of a highly invasive bittersweet vine on the north side of the little access path, down to the water, and we would suggest, cause it would just overtake any nice new plants that you're putting in, that you would have that bittersweet removed and that area replanted with natives.
It actually serves.
Okay.
It serves you better, actually.
Yeah.
Because
Okay, thank you. Yes.
You're
we
not
can do
taking
that.
up any of the lawn, you're replacing bittersweet with the native material. It serves you better.
That's great, thank you. Yes, we'll do that.
Would you like me to revise the plan? Because we have 2
If you,
weeks
if you
now.
can, that would be great, yeah,
Okay.
since we have time.
No questions?
I don't have anything, John.
Okay, anything in the room or online? I don't hear anything. We just need to continue, right?
The next date is December 17th. We would need a revision a week from today.
I just want to make one clarification. I'm sorry, I forgot. In my narrative, I said that the septic upgrade was going to be outside of the resource area.
Yeah.
That- I did not have a septic plan when I filed this.
Yeah.
I've since received one,
Mhm.
and it also is in the upper edge of the outer riparian, and I've since filed for an administrative review of that. I
Mhm.
just didn't want my inaccurate statement not being clarified for the record.
And we've received that.
So that will be on your updated plan? Just-
It's a separate application.
Oh, okay. All right. So continue until, to the 17th.
I'm not going to be here,
Okay.
but I don't think you need me. I'll give you a revised
We're
plan.
really just waiting for the file number and you'll give us the
Yeah,
plan.
I'll give you the plan.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll need me.
Okay.
If it all goes wacky, you can continue it, but if it's just what we think it's going to be, I think it's a simple.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone care to make a motion?
What are we making a motion to continue to December 17th, 7 Shoal Hope Drive, map 4, parcel D1-11. Remove the bittersweet patch.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have a notice of intent for 0 North Westgate Road, map 66, parcel 1-3. Is there a letter with that, by the way?
It was K1-3.
K1-3, thank you. SE 32-2620 for the removal of the dilapidated barn structure and concrete slab, and restoration of disturbed area with native plantings.
I'm gonna sit this one out, John.
Okay. You have the floor.
Thank you. So my name is Kelly Grant. I'm Land Protection Specialist with Harwich Conservation Trust. Amy, did you want the green cards?
Take them when you're done.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
So, yeah, representing Harwich Conservation Trust this evening with this notice of intent for the removal of an old barn structure at 0 North Westgate Road. This property was recently purchased by the Compacted Cape Cod Conservation Trust, who are the current owners, acting as the interim conservation buyer for Harwich Conservation Trust. And while we're in the middle of our fundraising campaign to acquire the property, we are working to remove the dilapidated structure from the property and to restore that area with native plantings. So the project site is a 7.4 acre parcel that's part of a larger, just under 18 acre project area that we're acquiring. And the property is, or the project area is proximate to the Robbins Pond with a stream connection from that pond and wetlands on either side of the work area, which are old cranberry bogs that were abandoned many decades ago. So the entire property is mapped as Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program Estimated Habitat of Rare Wildlife for the eastern box turtle. And as I said, there are wetlands surrounding most of the project area. So the proposed work will occur within the bylaw, the wetland bylaw no disturb zone, and within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland, and it will also occur within the riverfront area and within estimated habitat of rare wildlife. So the project proposes no new structures, and it will remove and restore the existing disturbed area as shown on the site plan. And the work itself will include installing erosion control around the work area. We'll need to do some minimal regrading of a slope on the access driveway just to allow for heavy equipment to access the work area. And then the demolition and removal of the structure and the concrete slab, and then seeding of disturbed areas with native grass seed mix to stabilize the site, and then planting of some native shrubs. And I submitted a more detailed list of the plants and the seed mix that we're planning on using, but when we have a final plan, we will submit that as well for approval. So, as I mentioned, the access to the work area is through an existing access driveway from the neighbouring property at 49 North Westgate Road. The owner has kindly allowed us to have access through his property as the easiest access way. So there's an old dirt road that accesses the barn. As I said, it needs a little bit of alteration just on the slope to make it safe to get the heavy vehicles in there. So the work line limit erosion control will be installed before any work takes place. There is some debris that is technically outside of that work line limit, so we will need to maybe remove some of that fencing just to allow equipment to get some of those larger items. But for the most part, the work will be strictly within that work line limit. So the demolition work will be carried out from the existing disturbed upland areas, and access will be limited just to that. That's required to remove the debris. And then the site will be restored, as I said, with native plant species, seeding, and some shrubs. So in terms of how the project meets the performance standards, we are proposing work within the no disturb zone, but because we are removing a structure and restoring the area, there will be an overall benefit to the resource area. And that applies to the buffer zone, to the bordering vegetated wetlands as well. And the work within the riverfront area is allowed on the basis that it will create an improvement over existing conditions, And really, the only alternative is to leave the structure in place, which was obviously a hazard, a safety hazard, and not beneficial to the environment there. And we did submit the application to Natural Heritage for their review, and thankfully they came back with their comment letter yesterday, so they just required a condition that we complete all of the work between October 15th and May 15th. And we're proposing that the demolition will probably occur in early February, so we're well within that window. And that is all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Amy?
It's an overall wonderful improvement to the property to naturalize it and remove this dilapidated hazardous structure and any debris that's around it as well. So I really have no big comments regarding it. I'm curious if you knew why they picked that particular window for a time of year restriction, if it was bird, like nesting driven, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was mapped for box turtles, so I don't really
Okay.
know. But actually, I think there may have been another species there as well. I'd
Interesting.
have to go back and look at the original.
Yeah, I was
letter.
just curious.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was trying to.
That's an odd window. So, but it sounds like you can get the work done then. We had chatted a little bit about a final kind of planting list. I mean, just while we're sitting here looking at the site today, huckleberry and sweet fern might be nice additions to the dry sandy soil. Kind of, sheep laurel tends to like more shade, so if you were gonna like it, or gonna put it in shadier area, or shady areas, that's fine, but I don't know how it would do kind of in an open area. And other than that, it looks good. I don't recommend really much, if any, loam there, because it is kind of just a sand plain.
I was thinking maybe just if we needed to bring in any sand or anything to regrade it, depending
Yeah.
on how much we have to remove,
Yeah.
then mostly just sand and maybe just a little bit of organic material just to get stuff started.
I was
but
gonna say, just in the holes or around it to
Right.
get the plants started.
Yeah.
We do have a DEP number for this one, so you can vote on this one tonight. We also noticed some locusts on the site, so even if those happen to be outside the limit of work, be in favor of, as part of your land management of that property, allowing the removal of the locust, which are invasive, and I would recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. Vivian?
No questions, looks good.
No questions?
No questions.
Susan? The only other thing that isn't mentioned here that was very evident at the site was a lot of miscellaneous debris from various things. I would like to see us condition removal of all, I mean, there's everything from chunks of concrete and cinder blocks to miscellaneous metal objects and things.
Unnatural debris.
Unnatural debris, there you go.
Yeah, we're gonna have a cleanup in advance of the contractor coming out
Yeah.
so that we can consolidate all of the bits and pieces without having to disturb too much and then have them remove it all in one go.
I'd just like to document that, so.
Yep.
Other than that, questions or comments from the public? I don't hear any. And we have a motion.
Motion to approve the compact of Cape Cod, 0 Northwest State Road, map 66, parcel K1-3, SE 32-0620.
Second.
Sophia?
With,
With the conditions.
Oh, with the condition that all the debris will be removed prior to.
seconded by Mark. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. 501.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me go get Wayne, hold on. Or you can start.
Next, we have a notice of intent for 11 River Bend Road, map 1, parcel G1-9, for float relocation and maintenance dredging.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just 1 second to. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Amy and members of the committee. My name is Charlie Agro. I'm a waterfront engineer with the BSC Group here on behalf of the owners, Jeffrey Lang and his wife. The proposed project is to take an existing floating dock, ramp, and landing and relocate it within the owner's property further east along the existing wooden bulkhead. The reason why we are doing this is because currently the float is in very shallow water, and the owner, when they're approaching the dock, as they navigate through from the river into the area here, they have to travel through a pretty good stretch of shallow water to get to the dock. So by moving the float further east, we're simply going, basically the boats will travel the same path that they currently do, just shorter. By relocating the float, we still aren't in deep enough water to meet the requirement for 3 feet of water at low tide where the boat is sitting. So we are proposing some minor dredging, and the dredging that we're proposing is considered maintenance dredging because this is all within an area that was previously dredged. The dredge volume is 70 cubic yards from sediment samples and shellfish surveys that have taken place at the site. This is very mucky material that is not conducive to shellfish habitat. So hopefully by removing some of that sediment, we'll actually be improving the area slightly for potential shellfish habitat. A shellfish survey was done of the area and submitted. Sorry that for the delay in that it wasn't with the original application. But from the survey, I can't think of how many specific locations were sampled, but of all the sample locations, only one bay scallop was found with no other shellfish found, and again, just more debris, sticks, and mucky sediment was found during the shellfish survey itself. The other aspect with the project is to excavate and the area behind the wooden bulkhead and replace that material with some 3/4 inch crushed stone. I'm sure everybody's been to the site, there are some voids located behind the bulkhead, which are from just the bulkhead being around. I think it was reconstructed in the early 2000s. So as these wooden bulkheads kind of age, the tongue and groove members start to get thinner and thinner, which create voids in the wall, which allows retained sediment to seep through the wall, creating voids on the retained side. So we're looking to just basically do some minor maintenance construction by making essentially a 3-foot wide gravel strip along the backside of the bulkhead. We have received some letters about the project, and to address the comments from the abutter at 25 River Bend, I spoke with the owner, Jeff, and we came up with potentially relocating the landing and the ramp so that it would basically be mirrored from where it is now currently being proposed. It's being proposed on the west side of where the floating dock is. We would consider relocating it to the east side of the float, which puts it on lot 10. And Jeff has expressed that he would be willing to allow that particular abutter and anybody with rights to that easement to use his floating dock to help improve their access to the water, and hopefully that's seen as a bit of a win-win for everybody involved. Because currently the main access to the water from lot 10 is by using a wooden ladder, which is on the eastern face of the bulkhead on lot 10, and I tied up to that when I did the shellfish survey, and it's an pretty poor condition, not necessarily all that safe for use anyway. So hopefully this is a safer, better option for people accessing the water. The wetland resource areas we have here, land under the ocean, land subject to coastal storm flowage, coastal bank, which it's not a sediment contributing coastal bank. It's more for stormwater protections, land subject to coastal storm flowage. As I previously stated, it's not necessarily great shellfish habitat. And then as the boat traverses from the river into where the current dock is now, being so shallow, there's prop wash. If the boat runs aground at mid to lower tide, that prop wash creates suspended sediment, which isn't necessarily great for the water quality. So by relocating the dock further to the east, we're potentially improving that situation. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
So we do not have a file number for this either, so this would not be, this would be continued tonight, regardless. And, we did a little bit of digging on this piece and did find there's a waterways license and conservation permit for the bulkhead in this location, but where the, ramp and float currently are was never permitted. It does go back at least to 2000, if not farther, on Google Earth. So the previous homeowners or previous owners had installed that. In my mind, we're here now and trying to permit a new location. So I'd like to see that go forward in some way, shape, or form. And then in just that other one would cease to exist, the one that's essentially never been permitted. We also received the letter from the abutter, and just for the record, I'll say, Maura Shields, who owns 25 Harbor Way, Lot 3, did email with concerns about relocating the float system so as to encroach on the use of Lot 10, which is a tiny little piece at the very end, close to the water. Conservation, that's more of a civil and legal matter there, but of course we don't want to permit something that's going to cause anybody any issues in terms of access going forward. So it's good that I would encourage you to continue to chat with the neighbors who have interest in that, to see if this is a reasonable solution, or if, like you said, you need to reorient the ramp and float sometime between now and the next meeting. If you were to have to reorient things, that would change your dredge footprint?
Not as I described there. The float would stay where we currently propose it. We would just take the landing and the ramp, which is currently on the west side here, and just basically take it and flip it over to this other side, so that the access to the float would be through Lot 10. So that abutter, anybody with deeded easement to Lot 10 would not have to go over to Lot 9 to access the float. So everything would take place on Lot 10.
I would just encourage you between now and the next meeting to, that Mr. Lang and the owners, who have rights to that parcel, clear that up. I did go through the shellfish survey. I think 15 3x3 transects were done, so a fairly large area was surveyed. And as you said, it was only, I'm not surprised that just one shellfish was found. This area has poor quality sediment in this basin. You did get approval from the Waterways Committee, I believe, at their
Yeah.
meeting in November, and that's the plan that you handed me. It was the same plan that we have, just with signatures from Waterways on it. And it was also a plan agreed upon, or looked well upon by the harbor master and natural resource director. So I have no further comments. We'll just have to wait for DEP number, and I do think that you should try to work with the neighbors to making sure that this is a livable solution that that complies with the rights.
Yeah, and if they happen to be here remotely or in person, I'd be happy to have a discussion.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Wayne?
I don't really have any problem with this. I think it's a better solution than what they used to have going way up into that basin. So, as long as they, were we gonna treat this as a new thing because
Yeah.
there's no permits? So, I don't have.
They did the same application that people would have to do
Right.
as to be a new one.
Yeah.
So they did the shellfish survey, they filed all the appropriate paperwork, so.
I don't have any problem with it, John.
Sophia?
I think if the maintenance dredging was gonna happen anyway, and that the impact of dredging in this new location is less,
Yep.
than it would otherwise be, then I think there's, I don't have any problem with it.
No issues.
Makes good sense to me.
I just have a couple questions. Didn't follow your entire narrative. So, lot 10, the little thing that is shown in this memo from Kroll and Donovan.
It's also on
Is
the
that-
site plan.
Okay. Is that is property that is part of the 11 River Bend Road? It actually, the outright ownership is with the Langs. Is that correct?
Yes, the Langs
Yes.
own the lot, and there is a mutual easement to Lot 10.
Okay, and at the end, as you mentioned, there's a sort of more or less north-south running bit of construction there. Is anything gonna happen with that, or that's gonna be just left as it is? Because it's kind of crumbling, and when I was there, it looked like an aluminum ladder that was hanging off that. not
Is it
wood.
aluminum?
Mhm.
Okay.
Like a swimming ladder off of somebody swimming.
Okay, that's what it was, yeah. So I just remember it being in rough shape, that there was a whale that was detached, that I tied off temporarily while I was there, to a fender pile. There are no current plans of doing that because it extends over the property line. That whole stretch of bulkhead is kind of getting there anyway. It was built early 2000s, so it's over 20 years old now. So that whole stretch of bulkhead may be getting addressed in the mid-term, but there are no current plans to deal with that.
I mean, the whole stretch going along the north.
So this would be the whole stretch. This is about 20 so odd years old. This stretch here, this wall was originally shown on the 1951 license. I think it was maybe rebuilt between 2000 and the 51 license, because you could kind of see in some of the scoured areas, you could see some older walls. Some of those might be tie-back walls. It's kind of wall on top of wall, and it's kind of hard to follow the history of it.
So there's already stone behind the bulkhead there.
In some areas, yeah.
Thought it was all along,
No, it was actually,
but it was like slumping.
Right.
In a bunch of places. You're filling that in and making a 3-foot wide path along that whole thing?
Right, well, we're looking to remove, so go in there with a small piece of machinery, like a dingo, or maybe by hand, or by a skid steer, something small, excavate the area behind, lay down a sheet of filter fabric underneath that little area that's excavated, put new gravel behind it just to kind of situate the retained sediment there.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. So,
I do have one more question, sorry, that's just
Go ahead.
occurred to me. When Mr. Lang and the abutter come to an agreement, where does that get recorded for future homeowners?
That will be that is not something I'm not that knowledgeable of.
And one thing I forgot to add to, according to Jeff, There's obviously a lot of work going on out there now. I haven't been out since the shellfish survey, but he did say that through the easement, he had removed the fence and removed the gate, and there's been some vegetation removal to try to help make access to the water easy. And I mean, Jeff's all about access to the water, so I'm sure something can be worked out there.
Yes.
I just, ahead of comment and stuff, how much of the easement usage access is for us to, like, facilitate?
Not really, it's not within our purview. Just would hate to permit something that would get appealed based on something like this rather than, you know, an environmental detriment. But it's just easier to clear it up now and make sure everybody is happy with the arrangement before.
We don't have a number anyway, so.
We don't have a number anyway, so,
And if, I think.
yeah, it's not our
sorry.
purview.
And I was just gonna add, I think worst case scenario, the float could be moved back 10 feet to the west, on the other side of the property line for Lot 10, to get it completely off Lot 10. It doesn't necessarily change things too drastically here. We would, slight modification to the maintenance dredge footprint with that,
Be
but
an
that could be
amendment.
another option.
Okay, so I think we've heard all the comments from the commission. Do we have people in the room? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Noreen Kalen, West Harwich. First off, the float isn't permitted, so I think you need to consider that. They already have over 200 square feet of permitted floats, so I don't think it should just be a given that they get this float permitted. You know, they have, is it 638 square feet of permitted floats there? So that, I don't think it's a given that you just say they have this float. The other issue is that there's permanent rights that have been in deeds since the 30s and the 50s, and they're the private ways. So there's a 15-foot private way that goes from Riverside Drive down to the Heron River. And, you know, part of it is all the different homeowners, their lots, you know, are half of the way. And then for the Langs, Lot 9 and 10, 15 feet is the private way that everyone in the neighborhood that's part of the plan in their deeds say they have access to it. So there's 15 feet, so it goes like 195 feet down, 15 feet. And there's, you know, different plots. There's 11597A that shows it from the 30s, and then the 14126 that shows it, you know, from the 50s. So all of these things are there, and they have it in their deeds. So anyone who's purchased any of these lots, so like the Langs with their 9, 10, 11, 14, whatever lots they have, it's all in there. You know, everyone in the neighborhood, they have these private ways, and everyone has access to it. You know, in the language, everyone has the right to pass and repass. So, and then also on Lot 10, several people have access to Lot 10, and, you know, it's, you know, to moor a boat. So, if you grant him a float, which he already has lots of floats, beyond what is recommended for the Heron River, you know, it shouldn't be on Lot 10 at all, because it would impede the people who have the right to moor on Lot 10. So the language in the deeds, it says, right in common with others to use Lot 10 on said plan for purpose of mooring boats. And then it describes Lot 10. And then on the right-of-way in commons with others, You know, it talks about it going from Riverside down to the Herring River, you know, the bank of the river. And then all the other ways, you know, every lot, you know, lot 1, lot 2, lot 3, lot 4, half of the road belongs to that person, and the other half belongs to the other property owner. You know, so all the private ways are owned by everyone, and everyone have the right to pass and repass the common way with others entitled thereto. So that's all something that really needs to be considered, you know, so, you know, these are deeded rights that have been in place, you know, since the 30s, the 50s, and they need to be abided by. So, and if a float's not permitted, I think he needs to get a permit, and I think you need to consider whether you permitted another float when he already has lots of floats permitted, which is way beyond what is recommended for the Heron River. I mean, part of the Heron River study on water structures was to limit the footprint. So I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
You may.
Thank you. The floats that I believe she was talking about, or floats refer to Scallop Farm project, which those are aquaculture materials or for something totally not related. So I believe they weren't actually considered floats. I wasn't necessarily privy to those hearings, but it's not, that shouldn't be considered part of the square footage for this float. This float is 120 square feet within the 200 square feet. That's the requirement for the town guidelines, and the float or the structures for the Scallop Farm are totally separate.
If I may clarify, so I think we did, that's a separate project, so
Right.
I don't think we should discuss it. I would recommend we don't discuss that project here tonight. That project is also under appeal. So I don't
Right.
think it's appropriate to discuss that other project here tonight.
I guess I just wanted to clarify that those aren't
I appreciate
necessarily
it.
floats.
Yep. Thank
So,
you.
I'd like to clarify one point, or get some clarity on Riverbend Road. Is that a public way? And just looking on Mass Mapper, it looks to me like a public way. It looks like it's part of the town road system there. I don't know how accurate Mass Mapper is, but it just, the extent of Riverbend Road runs down to the salt marsh at the river. And if that's a public way, I assume that's how the neighbors count on getting down there, which should not be an issue for us for this hearing. We're hearing a application to put a float there, and the one question before us is access through lot 10. And again, we're not determining anything about that, we're just trying to avoid issues. So I don't know where we go with any of that, except from my point of view, what we need to focus on is determining whether we can eventually issue a permit for the float relocation and reconstruction. Are there any other public comments or questions?
You have a hand up online.
You do?
I think it's
Okay.
Attorney Elizabeth Pyle.
Oh, there we go. Yes, Ms. Pyle.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Pyle. I'm an attorney at Hill Law, and I represent several neighbors and abutters in proximity to the 11 Riverbend site. This is the first hearing tonight of the idea that the orientation of the ramp is going to be changed. I'm trying to visualize what that would look like, and I would encourage, like you said, the applicant to get in touch with me, and I'll try to get in touch with him as well, so that I can see what that involves, because that's a plan that we haven't seen before. And I'm not sure if that would address our concerns about access to Lot 10 or not. Under the plan that was currently submitted to relocate the float, half of the float would be by Lot 10 and the other part would be by Lot 9. As has been previously mentioned, there are several other neighbors in the area who have deeded rights to Lot 10 for the purpose of mooring boats. So we want to make sure that whatever is permitted here does not impede the right of our clients in their deeds to moor boats at the site. And it may be that the best option is to move the float so that it is more toward the house, as your engineer suggested there, to move it over so that it is only adjacent to Lot 9 and not adjacent to Lot 10 as well. But I'd be interested in seeing the new plans. If it looks like he was holding up some plans, I couldn't see them on the Zoom, but let's get in touch about that and we can see if that's something that's acceptable or whether the float should be moved over to only be in front of Lot 9 instead of Lot 10. The second thing that I wanted to just talk about is that we're glad that the commission is going to be treating this as a new license since this wasn't previously permitted. And they should be required to go through all of the steps that anybody applying for a new float would undertake. I understand there's been a shellfish survey, but all the other steps as well. With regard to the limits on floats, so under your water dependent structures bylaw and the wetlands protection bylaw, there's a 200-foot limit on floats. It doesn't say that there's any distinction between recreational or aquaculture or any other kind of float, and they are considered floats. The town council, your town council opined that the aquaculture floats were floats and that there was no distinction between recreational or aquacultural. So this is a situation where there's a previous order of conditions that is on appeal for 648 square feet of floats. This is for an additional 152 square feet of floats. That would be a total of 800 square feet of floats for this single property, and that would require a variance. So that would be our position at this time, and we ask that you just enforce the law for this property like you do for every other property that comes before you, and that all the appropriate permits be reviewed and that the standards for those permits be considered, because as was mentioned previously, there's already a lot of floats that you approved for this property. So, thank you very much.
I have a couple of follow-up questions. One is, are you representing any parties who have deeded rights to Lot 10?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Have any of those parties ever used that Lot 10 to moor a boat? And just an ancillary question to that is, what does it mean to moor a boat at a tiny postage stamp lot?
So my understanding is that previously there has been a boat moored there by some of the owners of Lot 10. I think it's just a tie-up. So, not the owners, I'm sorry, the people who have easement rights to Lot 10. And there has been a tie-up there, but it's also a right of access. And whether or not they have used it in the past is irrelevant because they have the right in their property deeds and they're entitled to exercise it in the future.
Thank you. Anything else? Do we have anyone else in the public here, online, or in the room who wishes to speak on this matter? And we need to
We
continue.
would need to continue, so your options would be, the next available is December 17th. We would need if there were any revisions or additional materials, I would need them by end of day next Wednesday.
Okay.
Then the other option would be our first meeting in January, which is the 7th. You can
Let's
always
go to
continue
the
for
17th. yeah.
17th and see how far we get.
Sure, that sounds great. Thank you.
I'll make a motion, we continue the plan for 11 Riverbend Road, map 1, parcel G1-9 to 1217.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Good night.
Next, we have a notice of intent for 32 Dunes Road, map 5, parcel W1-52 for the reconstruction of an existing permanent elevated walkway, pier, ramp, and float in Oyster Pond.
Hello.
Good evening.
Let me get my stuff out here, please.
One of the top one.
All right. For the record, Mark Burgess, Shorefront Consulting. I'm an ocean engineer, and I've been designing projects like this for 25 years. Okay, so as Amy said in the presentation, so this is a previously permitted and licensed, fully permitted and licensed existing structure. The walkway starts at the base of some stairs and then travels nearly at grade all the way to an existing dock, and then a ramp and a float. I will say, all of that is within the footprint of the permit and the license, with the exception of the float. The float got changed somewhere along the line, it happens, and the proposal before you puts the float to the same configuration and location that it was originally permitted. And that changes it 2.5 feet wide, I think. So I'm gonna whack the mic here. The existing float is 10 by 24, which exceeds your 200 square feet and all of that. So that goes away. The permitted float is 12.5 by 16, which is exactly 200 square feet. So the float is going to get shorter but wider. So the end of the float will stick out another 2.5 feet into the waterway, but that's the permitted location. That's the location it was originally permitted. So it will, in that respect, it will be the way it was permitted and licensed. So therefore, it doesn't change the license. We're in the same license footprint, so this is all local permitting. The rest of the reconstruction, so like, as we always try to do here, we have an existing permitted structure. Yes, we could probably rebuild it exactly the way it was permitted and just go along, but not too many people would be happy about that. So whenever possible, we try to make changes that are better for the environment, better for maybe the overall design and things like that. So what we've done is I raised up all of the walkway. All of it has been raised up. So it starts out even with the upper step, elevation 11.5, proceeds, how many feet? 60 feet to just where the marsh starts, and then it ramps down to the existing dock, which is kind of an odd-shaped platform, if you will, kind of a wedge shape. Now, the platform itself, it's supported by 6 piles, I believe, 6 or 8. Yeah. And the idea was, there's about this much extra pile that sticks up above the decking. So the idea was to raise that deck up a foot just by unbolting it and just lifting it up and bolting it higher up on the same pile. So no in-water work. That's the highest that we can raise it without replacing the piles. So that's part of the proposal, was to raise that outer section about a foot. Piles don't have to be touched. Nothing happens to the bottom substrate. There's no work. Actually, there's really like no work in the water to do this. So that it improves the situation in that area. It doesn't solve what everybody would love to have, which would be a full 4 to 6 feet. 1-to-1 ratio would be 4 feet over the marsh. 1.5 to 1 ratio would be 6 feet over the marsh. We start out, we're 5 feet above the vegetation all the way down until you get to the marsh, and then much higher, but then eventually you get to the 5 feet. You'll see that around the second piling, and then it does decrease from there. Now, I looked into stairs. You know, we could go out a little further, keep that height, and then put stairs down to the dock. The applicant and I looked over several options to get to this point. As you know, we try to figure out and give it our best shot. What I ended up doing as an engineer, I said, well, here's the ramp angle at low tide, so I matched that angle with the rest of the elevated walkway. So while it isn't ideal as you go out toward mean high water, it's still an improvement. The pictures that I included show some of the marsh grass actually growing up through the dock. And there's it is a massive amounts of marsh right on every side of this dock. I don't have a picture of what's underneath. I guess we could speculate that the marsh might be a little less under there, but there's one picture that shows blades of grass coming up through the deck boards. So it's healthy, and this will only improve it. But to be honest, it won't give us 5 feet of clearance over the marsh on the outer end. Did you get the DMF letter? It wasn't 11th hour, it was 11th hour and 59 minutes.
Yeah, I did print it out for them.
Okay, so I'm prepared to address that, if you will.
So this is the one for 32 June,
It's-
so we got two of them. That's this one, Wayne, if you want it.
So they commented on they commented on the outer part of the marsh. The applicant hasn't seen this. I haven't had any time to discuss whether or not we would make any changes. It's really based on how you guys feel, based on the fact that this is overall a pretty large improvement. So while it's an improvement, yes, it's not perfect, to be honest. So that was one of their comments. And we don't have a file number, so we'll be continuing this anyway. They mentioned the float clearance. So the float, well, we're not changing it. That's the location the float was permitted in. The only way to change that would be to push the float out another 6 feet to get 30 inches of clearance, or you would do a float stop. So I measured that on AutoCAD today. So right now, under the landward side of the float, seaward side is no problem. And that may be what your regs say is 3 feet on the seaward side, so it is what it is. But just to answer the question, there's 1.7 feet under the landward side of the float, which that position doesn't change. But you'd have to push that out 6 feet into the waterway before the landward side of the float had 30 inches. So just to address their comment, your decision. Yeah, in order to address their concern of even a 1-to-1 ratio, that the outer dock platform at the area where it lands would have to be raised up another 2.3 feet for 1-to-1 ratio. We'd have to raise it up another 5.3 feet for a 1.5-to-1 ratio. Again, if we did that, then those piles would have to be changed. You could certainly put longer piles back in the same holes they came out of, so no net impact there. Now, I'm just throwing these out because that's what they said. You guys can decide whether that's important enough to change or not. I'm sure the applicant would love to see this exactly the way it was drawn. I did ask him about stairs. He doesn't want to try to wheel a cart or something downstairs, so. And if I make the ramp that's currently drawn, let's say I could extend the dock out one other set of pilings, then the ramp gets steeper. It's not treacherous steep, it just is steeper. But we already have 5 feet of clearance on that first section. This first section already has 5 feet plus. It would be these sections to raise up. So if I extend the dock out here, this goes up, it gets steeper. So the only way to solve that, if you raise up the outer, do this again, it's okay? If I raise up a portion of this, or all of it, now you've got a ladder for a ramp. So what do we do? Or if you want to do anything, what do you do? You raise this up, and you'd end up getting rid of this. If you raise this up to here, you know, that angle's like this. So you'd end up getting rid of the dock at all, and that, I'm sure that's not a desired option. So the question is, are the changes that have been made enough to improve it enough that it's acceptable for the board? The other option, or the other thing I wanted to say was, I didn't propose any mitigation for this because it's not a new structure. Having said that, raising it up is certainly going to improve 50 to 60% of what's there already, and it may not impact the marsh at all. Probably shouldn't say it that way, but any extra elevation over the marsh is going to improve it, and the entire structure does that. So even the outer end that is still raised up a foot over the current marsh. So all of that is an improvement. But further to that, if there was any mitigation, there's no place to plant it, so this would be what I would consider, in my opinion, a mitigation constrained site. Just throw it out there. I think I've gone over all the numbers, so with that, happy to answer questions.
Okay, we'll see what Amy has to say.
Tagging on to the end there, I would say, the site, what you're proposing, whether it's coming more into compliance or coming completely into compliance, in my opinion, would be mitigation, not no additional mitigation would be needed. It's almost as if I read DMF's mind when I asked you if it could be brought up to complete compliance.
Yeah.
So, I don't see having to do new pilings in order to get more or completely into compliance in terms of elevation over the salt marsh, which is one of the most highly protected areas in the Wetlands Protection Act, as being a huge endeavor to hopefully for somebody to have to do, considering, I was going to ask you what you think the life of those piles are to begin with, how much life is probably left in them.
Lee and I took a look at them, and they seem like they're in pretty good shape.
I guess I would, if it's feasible and able to be designed to do such, though this has got as a great improvement compared to what's there, and we went out there today. I think it's our responsibility to try to get you to be as close to, if not hitting as much compliance as you possibly can. And it's only gonna benefit them and the salt marsh, going forward, so.
Understand.
That's my opinion. Your other option, if you don't wanna go as high, and they probably don't wanna do this, is to just not go as wide. Is to go 3 feet wide, and then you have to be 4.5. You do have the 5 feet at the like you said, at the very top, and then it kinda tapers, in terms of height. So if you can get the 1.5 to 1, if you can get 5 foot separation, it also eliminates stairs, and DMF didn't like the stairs too much.
Right.
Which is funny, because chapter 91 is probably gonna tell you have to put stairs.
Believe me, that's a common, doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
And further to that, depending on the type of license you go for,
Yeah.
one license requires they all require public access, but one license says you can't put stairs in the marsh, but that's where the mean high water line always
Right.
is, so, you know.
Well, I'm always a fan of if you can avoid having to do stairs, because they end up damaging more than anything, and it encourages people to use the marsh where they maybe shouldn't, if they can have access over it. So I've always been a fan of trying to eliminate stairs by going higher if you can. So that was pretty much their comment. Division Marine Fisheries comments was related to height, as well as depth around the float. In terms of depth around the float, our regulations do say 3 feet around the float. However, in this as you already have 3 feet on the seaward side, I would think that we could condition this, that a boat is to be tied up on the seaward side, and that going forward, dredging would have to be permitted. I don't see, doesn't seem too logical to bring a dredge in just for probably a very small amount of material that would have to come out for this. When you do have 3 feet where you're gonna be putting a boat. So, those are my suggestions to you. I think we should try to get close to, if not up to code as we can.
Thank you. Sophia?
I'm happy to see that it's an improvement, but I agree with Amy, like, it's sort of one of our most important resources that, we should try and get it as good as possible. So I don't really know, actually, like, would that just mean you going back to the client and discussing the width and that whole scenario?
Maybe new piling and new pilings.
Yeah, my only question was the width. That's another option as well.
Yeah, you're gonna have a hard time having somebody give up a width that's been already permitted. It's a usable space, he's got a little storage bench on there, and it's all happy. But, okay, we'll keep going. Mark?
I would favor what you've suggested as far as just elevating the deck itself. I think that's the least impactful, and I think that serves a multitude of good things.
Yeah, I might have to make the ramp longer, but that won't affect anything.
All set?
I think we were out there today, I agree with what's been said already, it's an overall improvement. It sounds like you have a little bit of time, because it's gonna continue anyway, to see if there's any way to tweak it to satisfy that height, but kind of reserve comment onto that to see something creative.
I agree with Mark. I think to raise that up a little bit, make this ramp a little steeper, might cure some of the problems
So,
for now.
seems like this discussion has been assuming that you have a 4-foot wide structure, but in fact, part of that structure is going to be more than 4 feet wide, where the storage chest you mentioned, I'm not sure where that is, where it would be once having reconstructed this, but that makes a bigger problem, right? If you've got 6-foot wide landing up there and you're trying to be 1.5.
He only has to be 1-to-1 there, because it's not over salt marsh.
So where is it? Where is it on this drawing?
The horizontal line is the dock, what I would call the dock, okay? This part here, and there's no salt marsh under
Down
that.
here.
This is the problem child, right here. This area right here where it lands. So, okay?
Must have been something you said.
So I think if we raise this up 2 feet, we're at 1-to-1, not 1.5-to-1. And I think that's something I could probably work with. It lessens this angle actually, which is fine. It steepens the ramp a little bit, but this is already fairly not steep. The problem I've been having with a lot of new docks is the dock is so high that now even a 20-foot ramp, which the dock people hate, is really steep, even at low tide. Even a 20-foot ramp, and so we're going back and forth. Anyway, I think if I raise it up, I might have to lengthen the ramp. That's no big deal. It's still within the licensed footprint. It's just the Seagull's view is different, the same. So if I raised up the whole dock 2 feet instead of the 1, and that might get us, well, it's 2 feet higher than, 2 feet higher than it's proposed. So it'd be a total of 3 feet higher than it is now. And that would get that end at a 1-to-1 ratio. Geez, I still have to have the stairs though.
So I'm not particularly in favor of permitting something that doesn't strictly follow the rules, that is 1.5-to-1. And so far, you're not really talking about that. and you're trying to cycle through all the design considerations, how you maximize that, I would prefer it if when you come back, you have a design that actually fits the current regs, not
Mhm.
explaining to us why you can't do that.
Okay.
I think that's your engineering job, right, is to meet the regs and come back in and explain to us how you meet the regs, as opposed to why you can't. And I think you should be able to solve this problem. It's a design problem.
Mm-hmm.
You ought to be able to solve the problem, and so it would be great if you came back where you fit the regs, as opposed to having to make exceptions. I mean, we went through a lot of hand-wringing and study trying to come up with our rules, for example, for being 1.5 to 1, and I would like to see you meet those. And I am concerned about the fact that the float barely meets the 3 feet on the outer edge. I'm not sure what you can do about that. You know, if you can get everything else into shape, that's fine, but again, that's another place where you're asking us to make an exception to avoid dredging.
Do you mean 3 feet on the seaward edge? Or,
You are 3 feet on the seaward edge. That's not what our regs say is required. And I am concerned that even if we condition a lot of things that we find out later people aren't abiding by, particularly when the property changes hands. You know, that little bit of information doesn't generally make it from one owner to the next. And, you know, it's very convenient to tie up on the ends of the float, not just on the outer edge. So I'm concerned about that as well. I think the key issue here, though, is the salt marsh and making sure you clear the salt marsh by 1.5 times the width of the platform. I would really prefer to see that when you come back in with a redesign.
okay, I get it. I forgot whether you were 1 to 1 or 1.5 to 1.
When we're over
forgot.
salt marsh, it's 1.5.
I know, and I was here for all of that too, but my
It was
brain
too
is...
painful, so you thought about it, is that it?
Otherwise, it's 1 to 1 if it's not over marsh.
Right.
It's 1 to 1.
All right, well, I will see what I can do about that. I don't know that I can do that in a week, but...
Do you want to put it down for that, or would you prefer, and then continue if you have to? Or would you want to go on, I think our first meeting in January is the 7th.
7.
And I would want revisions by the 31st.
Where are we at here?
So you could either put you on the books for the 17th, and we'd want revisions in a week.
Yeah, I'm busy that night.
So the 7th of January. Revisions would be due New Year's Eve, which we have a half day that day.
You'll be around to review them?
But that's the due date. I'll be around in the morning.
Yeah. I won't be here.
On the 7th?
No, the 7th I will be here. I'll be away over that holiday. So I can get into you before.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
penalty for getting it before.
Revisions are due then on December 31st, right?
So would you like January 7th?
Let's shoot for that, sure.
All right, we need a motion for that.
Okay, I'll move that we continue, what is it? 32 Dunes Road, map 5, parcel W1-52 to January 7th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have a notice of intent for 37 Nons Road, map 5, parcel W1-18, SE number 32-2604, for pier, ramp, and float with dredging. This has been continued from November 5th of 2025.
folks, if you could please stay muted until the time that you wish to speak, that would be very helpful.
That's the Davidsons.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it sounds like they have a telephone and a
Oh, yeah.
computer running, and that always ends up having merciless echo.
So Ed, if you're on the, we see you on the computer, you can turn off the phone and then unmute yourself in your computer.
When you're ready to talk.
When you're ready. I've got a few things to say before.
Okay,
Okay.
you have the floor.
Oh, did you want the green cards for,
Yeah, I'll take them, thank you.
it's not in my file, that's a good thing. And any stragglers on, nope. No stragglers.
Thanks.
Okay, well, me again. So this one is a challenge. As you're well aware, the easy ones seem to be all gone. But again, that's my challenge. Okay, so we came before you a couple of weeks ago, before we went to Waterways, to show you the revised plan. The plan is still unstamped. It may change, I'll get to that later. And we will be continuing this. So the purpose of this hearing is to go through comments from Waterways and see how the commission feels about them, and then determine, what obstacles we must overcome, and then it becomes my job. So, but you saw the revised plan before. There was a comparison plan that showed the old location versus the new one, and you've seen the plan for the new one. I have it here, and you probably have it there. So the new location seemed to be much, much better. I spoke with the neighbors, or one of the neighbors that was gonna herd the other cats, and I believe Ben sent an email.
Who?
Ben Stevens?
Yes.
I don't even,
Do I have it?
I thought I printed it out. Let me see if I have
Good
it.
question, but I do recall getting it. Sorry,
Yeah.
let me see if it's
I think it was on Dropbox.
probably in Dropbox. Okay, thank you. But go ahead.
Oh. There is a straggler.
This is for 37 minutes.
Yeah, that's from Reno.
Okay.
Let me see, I have an email from him. Huh. No, I don't think I have that. It was after I sent it to him. No, I don't seem to have it. If I summed it up, I would say that the email said that some of the neighbors had looked at it and that they thought that the new location was better. Perhaps not perfect, but they thought the new location was better. And the reason was because the previous complaints were all about how to set up to get around this corner when the wind is blowing this way. When people come in, they try to get as far away here as they can so that they can cut across. So the old dock was here, and they thought that would interfere with it. So now they come in here, and this is much more out of the way, so they can navigate in front. The channel's 32 feet wide here. It's actually 27 here, and then the original dock location that was here was 36 or 38. They had done 2 shellfish surveys already, so you have the second shellfish survey. Otherwise, the dredging is nearly the same as here. I had extended it to try to soften this corner, but we really only need about 64 yards or so, 70, maybe 70, to do this. And this was up to, you know, the magic 99 cubic yards number to go this far to try to soften the corner. But I don't know that that made much of a difference. The rest of the design is the same. The dock is 20 feet long. It was longer before, so it's only 20 feet long. Only two piles are needed. It's attached to the bulkhead, so a shorter structure, same ramp and float, smaller boat. So I went to Waterways. They weren't happy. The harbor master, well, he wrote an email and had a copy of the minutes. So his main thing is navigation. While I understand that's not necessarily your purview, his point was that he's interpreting the water dependent structure bylaw by saying that any dock cannot extend into the channel so as to reduce its width by 50 feet. Fair enough, right? I mean, that's what it says, basically. So he's like, well, this channel's only 32 feet. And I'm like, well, but we're not decreasing the width of the channel. So when I look at a bylaw like that, and I said all this to them, he did not change his interpretation. When I look at a bylaw, I say, okay, why was this bylaw developed? Now, the federal channels, Saquatucket, Allen Harbor, they're 50 feet wide. Okay. That might be some standard I'm not aware of, but by coincidence, they're 50 feet wide. The point of that regulation, I believe, would be to say, and common sense would say, okay, don't build a dock that the float or the boat sticks into the channel to reduce its width. They said 50 feet. If they just said reduce the width, the bylaw would be fine, and we comply with that. So in principle, this float and the boat attached to it does not reduce the current width of the channel. We're dredging a parking space, but we are not reducing the current width of that channel with this project. And that, I believe, in my interpretation, is the principle of which that bylaw was made. And if they had just deleted one word from it, it would have been fine. But they used the 50 feet. So John, the harbor master, is saying, well, the channel isn't 50 feet. Okay, then you can consider it perhaps pre-existing non-conforming. In a zoning bylaw world, you'd say pre-existing non-conforming, and whatever we're doing is not further the non-conformance in that principle as well. So nothing that we're doing is making the channel any less narrow and making that condition any worse. That's the principle. So we had a great conversation. We respectfully disagree on how that bylaw is interpreted. And it would be up to the board to decide, I guess, how to interpret that bylaw. That was, I think, mainly what the harbor master was discussing in his email, and he had the meeting minutes, which are probably part of the record now, too? Mm-hmm. Okay. So we'll move on to shellfish. So your new director of natural resources is pretty stringent on her approach to dredging and the shellfish. Now, I also believe, yes, Paul Mancuso from BSC Group is on the line. He is the one that performed or is aware of the shellfish surveys that were performed, and he has a couple of ideas on how to mitigate against Stephanie's, your Director of Natural Resources, her concerns. So if I paraphrase, her concerns were basically that, okay, you're dredging, so you're removing habitat, but you're removing a shellfish from the area, and this area is seeded, it's actively shellfished, and there's a good population of shellfish. I get it, yes. She was concerned that, one, you're removing seed, and you're removing adult shellfish from the area. So when you just reseed, or whatever you do for your mitigation, the $6,000 of seeding, again, that $6,000 buys enough seed to successfully reseed an area of 105,000 square feet, more than 2 acres. And that's at a 10% survival rate. Having said that, So yes, she's right. If there were adult shellfish in the dredge footprint, you're removing them. However, you leave them off to the side, and when you're done with the project, you put them back. So that the habitat is all land under ocean, so you're not changing it to coastal beach or anything like that. They go back into the same habitat that they were. And I'm gonna have Paul explain that in a little more detail. They have more experience in these arenas. So like I said, the goal tonight is to see how the board feels about these issues, what we can do about it, and then the monkey's back on my back again. And the DMF letter, the new one, is exactly the same as the previous DMF letter with the exception of one paragraph, and I'd like to read that if you haven't already. No?
It's on their table.
It's in the, do you want me to read it, or it's a paragraph?
Go ahead.
The project is located in Shellfish Classification Area V2SC 39, what that is, and is conditionally approved for harvest. The shellfish survey included in the original NOI identified high densities of both quahogs and soft-shell clams in the project footprint. The town also seeded the project area with quahogs in 2024 and 2025. I don't know how they know that. Dredging the Milo water line and subtidal area will remove shellfish standing stock, productive shellfish habitat, and nursery habitat suitable for growing future shellfish seed. Dredging and dock construction would also limit shellfishing access to the area. Okay. That's not true because the dock itself is on coastal beach, and the ramp and float are removed seasonally. And there's only 2 piles out there, so, and there's plenty of room to shellfish around it. The ramp and float are removed seasonally, so there's that just simply isn't true. I don't know how they knew the seeding. That's interesting. But the comment is similar to what Stephanie was alluding to in her comments. So, for shellfish, you know, what do we do about that? I'm going to turn it over to Paul. Are you there?
Yep. Hey, this is Paul Mancuso. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so sort of reiterate what Mark was saying. I completed the shellfish survey at the site back in August of 2024. We found healthy populations of quahogs and soft-shell clams throughout both areas. And we worked with towns before when they're installing piers and things, and if the commission requires it, the shellfish warden can relocate shellfish, as Mark was saying. You can stake out the dredge area and then have the warden come in, or you could hire a commercial shellfisher or somebody to come in, dig up the shellfish from those areas, put them off to the side. You could perform the dredging, which would only take, I imagine, 1, maybe 2 days. It's not a big area. And then put them back, and the same surface area that they lived in would still be there. You're not reducing the land containing shellfish or land under the ocean. And if you wanted to, you could supplement that with seeding the area. Again, that whole area had tons of shellfish, tons of quahogs, and soft-shell clams. Those animals do move, so even if you did remove them, they would spread back into those areas after the dredging was complete. And it's not going to affect the quality of the shellfish habitat in that area by dredging for this pier. I think you could take some measures to prevent any impacts to the shellfish living there by relocating them while you're dredging and then putting them back. The only loss would be from the 2 pilings he said. That's like less than a square foot of piling. That is negligible. And so, in my opinion, the shellfish would bounce back very quickly. If you relocated them during the dredging and put them back, they would do just fine.
Okay. So I also wanted to point out that the project next door, while not completely apples to apples, but we will be required, I assume, to have follow-up shellfish surveys. And those have been done for several other projects in town. And in my projects, in those follow-up shellfish surveys, I have not noticed, nor has anybody brought to my attention, that the shellfish population or just the population and diversity had negatively changed since the dock and the float was put in. So that furthers to me to say, if we do this right in all aspects, then any impacts are temporary or none at all. And moving forward, everything goes back to the way it was, sometimes increased. And this area is shellfished, and some of the other areas of the follow-up surveys we did were also shellfished, and the population was still as good as it was when we first shellfished the area before, during permitting. So I think that proves that we're doing, we got it right. The bylaws, the way the designs are and all of that, we got it right. That these are proper, when they're properly designed, that there aren't permanent impacts to the shellfish habitat. So I think that's a good thing. I think that was all I had at the moment.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
So I'll start with navigation. So even though navigation, so waterways review and the harbor master review navigation, they are advisory to the Conservation Commission. Conservation does have jurisdiction, regulatory jurisdiction over the water dependent structures bylaw, which includes the navigation language. That being said, I depend almost solely on advice from our harbor master and waterways committee, as navigation is not my real purview. So when the harbor master says that, upon traversing the channel, in themselves and also looking at the regulations, that navigation would be hindered by this, I have no reason to suspect otherwise. So I understand how the bylaw can be read differently. Currently it says, and I put it in their site summaries, no structure or its related appurtenances, including floats, shall extend more than 80 feet seaward of the mean high water mark, nor farther than 50 feet into the deep water channel. And the deep water channel is defined by mean low water on either side.
3 feet. Sorry.
Yep.
Minus 3 feet.
Minus 3 feet on either side of the channel, nor allowed to encroach upon the deep water channel so as to reduce the usable width thereof of less than 50 feet. So I can see how it could be read both ways. Needless to say, this channel is only 30 plus or minus feet in width. It's pretty narrow. So in terms of navigation, I share that concern pretty much with either location that's shown here. The Natural Resource Director has written an email with her concerns about dredging this area, and just something to keep in mind. It's not a one dredge likely and done. If it would likely need to be routinely dredged. So understanding that this commission did approve a project adjacent not too many years ago, I would just say, when making comparisons, let's make sure the methodology and the tools used and everything are the same. That way we can definitively compare. But in hearing, they seed shellfish there because it is good habitat, but they also, I don't know this for certain, I'm sure there is some sort of natural set there as well. But there are various sizes from seed to harvestable adult size. And this is a really good area for shellfish. So alteration of this particular area is not something that at this point I can recommend. This project could have an adverse impact to land containing shellfish. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to say at this point. I think I'm good for now.
You can always chime in.
Okay, I'm not shy.
Right, Wayne.
I'm looking at the picture here, and this computer, the way you've got that designed, that boat's not gonna be in the channel. No, it's a nice little pocket in there, it's perfect. I think it's a great setup. And as far as shellfish goes, I don't know, we're making a mountain out of a molehill. If you dig up, save what you can, get them off to the side, you put them back in, they'll survive. You know, take that from somebody as a kid. Did a lot of shellfishing down there.
It's a very tricky one. The thing that I will say is when we did the site visit, the thing that really resonated with me was the staking of where that stake was in the channel, and it looked like it was in the middle of the thoroughfare. You know, so I feel like there's two things happening here. You've got concerns about shellfish from the experts, and you have concerns about the channel there. Also from, I have to defer to people who have more experience than I do, but I will say that I still remember where it was staked, and that looked to me to be a very narrow sort of passage for boats. So, yeah, it's a tricky one.
Tricky. Good, that's a good word.
I'm kind of torn about this one. I can understand both sides of it. And frankly, at this moment, I'm indecision.
In the what?
Indecision.
Oh, indecision, yes.
It is tricky, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into it, trying to get us to where we are. But I have to agree with Vivian, that stake, it just sort of hits you when you look at it, like how will this ever work? And quite honestly, the experts weighing in since then sort of only reaffirmed my original take on it. And I do think the shellfish is an issue. I mean, yes, perhaps they can grow back, but it just, we're treating it like it's no big deal to just plant some new ones, and I want to be sensitive to the shellfish habitat.
I just am deferring to both of the letters that we got and Amy's opinion as well. I feel like I have no real way of like discerning outside of that. I don't have any better information to offer, or so I think I'll be in line with what the recommendations are from Waterways and Resource Directorate. Anyway.
John? Sir?
Yes, sir. I also think that we should follow the recommendations of the Waterways Committee and the professionals there. I've spent time myself on the water. I've been in there in a boat, and I think it is a very tight, nothing in my experience tells me that we should ignore what the harbor master is saying about the navigation there. And my experience on the water also is that you can never assume, should never assume, that everybody else in the water is calm, rational, relaxed, and knows exactly what they're doing. Most people do, but there's always the case, and who knows? I think we need to go along with that. I just want to point out that I tried to listen to a bit of the meeting with Waterways, and one of the points that Stephanie made in that meeting, I believe, was that that relocating mature shellfish is different from relocating seed. And her point was, as I recall, and please correct me if you remember differently, that it takes a few years for the seed to grow, and disturbing them by trying to relocate them, pull them out of there, put them somewhere else, and then put them back is interfering with an investment of time and money that the town has put into seeding that area. So that's just another piece of data that I think we need to pay attention to, that basically they're telling us they don't think this is a good idea, and I think it's a bad idea. It would be a bad idea for us to dismiss that and make a different choice. My point. Now, we all have spoken. Is there anyone else in the room or online that wants to have a word in here?
I know Mr. Davidson wants to speak. I don't think the electronics are working for him.
Well, if he can unmute his phone and not his video, then he should be able to
Yeah,
make himself heard and understood.
his microphone's on.
They were actually live before. They logged into the meeting early. We heard
Lots of,
everything going on at dinner time, so they definitely have the ability to
But
should be able to.
it
And
looked
the
to me
phone-
like he had his
the phone
phone
is
on
very
as well as his computer,
okay.
and that always causes problems.
muted now, so if they want to, if they can talk.
They haven't raised their hand. There's no hand raised there that I can see.
Mr. Davidson?
That's all right. If he doesn't want to talk, we don't.
Well, he wants to talk, but he said evidently nobody can hear me. He said there was a 35 to 40-foot boat kept in the creek for 30-plus years. The channel was no larger than now, maybe narrower. He says that, we had a conversation today, so he says that because he's lived there most of his life. He remembers when that area had only 2 houses, and it gave me a lot of history. Way back, way back up in the, around the corner to the west, I guess somebody had like a 35-foot Chris Craft, and they all came out. They had the crew was out in dress whites, and the women were on the back with their little hats and everything. It was a piece of history. But his point was that he's been there, 60 years. It was yes, the channel's narrow. Nobody's going to. Nobody's going to dispute that. The channel's narrow. I tried to give the argument to Waterways to saying, well, look, boats have to go into slips all the time. That's a whole lot harder to navigate. Areas like that, you've got other boats in very, very close proximity. They didn't accept that argument. This is a dead-end street, too, so it's not like a channel where people are coming and going. The Pies and the Davidsons, to their knowledge, haven't seen any boats try to pass at the same time. There's only, I said 14 properties and 11 docks. I might have that wrong. So there's not that many boats, and some of the biggest ones are at the farther end. One of them's owned by a gentleman who agreed that this location was much better. But it is tricky. I mean, not tricky permitting, it's tricky to navigate. You've got to know what you're doing. I'm not saying this to be adversarial at all. It's just like, at some point, I don't think it's our job to permit against incompetence. If they run up on the shoreline, they run up. It's not our, we don't need to, I used to say a long time ago, if you make something idiot-proof, you're gonna have nothing but idiots running it. And I just don't agree with that. So, yes, you have to be skilled. No question there. But they've been getting in and out of that channel the way it is for years, and this does not, in my opinion, make it any narrower or make it harder, because the setup to go around that corner is away from this dock, not towards it. I'm still working with the neighbors. I've got one pitch to give to them, and if they agree to it, we'll be coming back with a revised plan, and if not, then I'll probably be coming back to you with this plan, and we'll figure out what to do at that time. So I've still got more work to do. I don't think I can change the design much. It would be splitting hairs. I could move it 6 inches one way or the other, but I don't think that's going to matter a hill of beans to anybody who doesn't like it. The only other thing I want to point out, regulation-wise, my understanding is that a lot of these impacts would be temporary, and the Wetlands Protection Act defines temporary impacts that are impacts that can be within a year. In other words, within a year, everything's back to the way it was. So remember, yes, Stephanie is right that you'll be removing seed, 1, 2, 3-year-old adult shellfish from the site. Agreed. But what we're saying is that those exact same shellfish can be put back so that it doesn't have to recover. It just goes back into 10 feet away, goes back into the same soil again and keeps right on going. So in my opinion, there isn't that impact that she's worried about, because we're putting it right back exactly the same way that it was. And sure, it can be offset with more seeding. That's usually part of our mitigation anyway. So I would ask you to consider that, and then I will continue to do my job, and we'll see where we end up. Okay? Does anybody have anything else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you say the shellfish can go somewhere else and then we put it back into that location, what are you talking about exactly?
You would-
Where would they go?
Off to the side. So you put them in the same place. Literally, if the dredge footprint was here, you could take them and just move them here and then put them back.
Who's doing that work?
The shellfish? Paul, do you guys do that?
We do not, we're not the ones who physically do it. It's usually the town shellfish warden. I believe Matt was saying some towns might hire someone else to do it, a commercial guy in the area. But yeah, they can come in, use their rakes, just pick them up, literally move them to the side. The dredging would not take long, and then when you're done, you just put them back. The shellfish will dig back into the sand, and I mean, that's what they do. And you're not impacting those shellfish. They'll be fine. They do fine. You're simply just relocating them for a day or two while you're dredging and putting them back in the same exact area where they will then dig back down in the sediment and continue doing what they do.
Can you buy, I know you can buy seed, can you buy more advanced, older shellfish?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay. All right, well, I would like you to consider that, that's all. Just that any of these impacts to shellfish, in my opinion, and there would be temporary at best. And we just basically put it back the way you found it. I don't know what you do about navigation. Be careful.
Yeah, I mean, one more thing. I mean, when we go out and do the shellfish survey, we're digging them up. We're taking them out of their hole. We're counting them, putting them on the side of the hole. We dig a bunch of plots, and then when we're done, we put them back in the plot, put the sediment back in there. In this site, we were there at very low tide. Most of it was exposed, and so yeah, you dig them up, put them to the side of your plot, keep digging. Once you finish your plot, count them, put them back in, measure them, get their sizes, and then you bury them, and there is no impact to those shellfish. Same idea with just pull them out to the side, then dredge it, put them back.
How do you know there's no impact though? Is there a follow-up survey then afterwards?
Yeah, the
No.
board, the commission's been requiring follow-up shellfish surveys for 3 years. And Pies was just done, I just don't have that data just yet, but that'll be year 2. Yes, they require that, they require, in the past, they've required that, follow-up surveys, they've required the $6,000 donation, if you will, to the town's shellfish resource department, specifically to be used to propagate shellfish areas. We've never talked about actually transplanting and replanting the same animals back in the same spot. So that would be extra that we're willing to do, obviously.
Just to add to that, I wouldn't put that, because it's a private application that benefits a private homeowner, I would not expect our natural resource director and her staff to be the ones to be doing that. It would have to be another qualified individual if this gets permitted.
Yep, well, I know that John Lowell has done shellfish relocation for me. I assume he could go back out there and put them back.
Just wanted to
But-
put that out there, because it was
Yeah.
she was mentioned there, and I don't want to put that burden of essentially, benefiting a private property owner on
Right.
her.
Well, the town could charge us for it, but we could certainly just
Yeah.
say, hey, we'll
Yeah.
work with Stephanie, get a qualified person out there under her direction, and
Mhm.
we'll get it done.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I
Okay.
just want to make clear that I cannot support us following, or defying a recommendation that has been made clearly and definitely to us by the Waterways Committee. I think that would be a mistake for the Conservation Commission to just tell them that we don't believe that their concerns are valid, which is what us approving this particular application would tell them. I don't think that's a good idea, and I'm not in favor of it.
Okay.
And I don't think my mind is going to change about that between now and January 7th. So
I understand.
it's worth, I don't know, the rest of the commission has made their statements about where they feel, but if you want to come back on January 7th, I guess that's your,
I'm guessing January 7th, or the next time you see me will be the final time you'll see me, one way or the other.
So your options are the 17th or the 7th.
I'm sorry. In January, right?
Well, I bet December, but,
Oh, no.
yeah, no. Just giving you the options.
Yeah.
It's January 7th or the other 2 weeks after that, which would be the 21st.
Yeah, January 7th, I'm back here,
Yeah, you're back here anyway.
the other one, so let's try that. If I need more time, I'll take it for either one.
looks like,
I mean, I enjoy a challenge, maybe not quite this much. but- And I appreciate everybody's comments, and I'm not trying to disrespect waterways and the shellfish. Shellfish, I think we actually have a way through that, if Stephanie can agree on the methodology, and I'll talk to her directly and see.
Yep.
The navigation, like I said, I don't know what you do. We're not making the situation any worse. It is what it is. So,
January 7th.
yep,
Okay.
someone could make a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion to move to January 7th, 2026. 57 Mounds Road, map 5, parcel W1-18, SE 32-2604.
All those in favor?
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Okay. So, happy holidays, Mark. You're not gonna be back here in 2 weeks?
No, I'm gonna be on a cruise over New Year's.
Good for you.
Oh,
New
where?
Year.
We just booked it today, which is a really stressful experience, I gotta tell you. So you need the cruise just after you booked it, I'll tell you what. But yeah, that's our holiday gift to each other.
Nice.
Okay. So,
Right.
let's see, now we have orders of conditions.
We have just the one, because I was reminded by Meg that you already did the one for 17 Dunes last time. It just got put on this agenda too.
All
So
right.
you've only got 31 Mill and 6 Barora.
Okay, an order of conditions for 31 Mill Road and 6 Florida Drive, map 15, parcels U3 and U3-2, SE 32-2603 for reconstruction of an existing joint use dock and maintenance dredging.
Sorry, these are off the press today, so these are on your table. I'll just take a minute. Oh, excuse me. Oh, the one thing I'll point out, since you're here too. We never really landed on shellfish mitigation for this one. We talked about it, and then it just kind of went away.
Oh.
So we did put it in there, our traditional language of $2,000 a year for 3 years, either to be provided to the town, to our shellfish fund, for us to do the seeding in that harbor, or that they may undertake it with under the guidance of the natural resource director on their self. So we did put that in there. It was discussed. It was not yayed or nayed.
Which one was that again? I'm sorry.
The shellfish mitigation?
Right, a standard amount.
Standard language.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, not much to do here. Found one.
Hmm?
They found one quahog in the whole area.
Yeah.
Do you, on this one, would you?
But once it's dredged, it'll be better.
Now, do
Hopefully.
you require the follow-up surveys on this one, or not?
Right.
Maybe I should have left.
I don't think we did because it wasn't great habitat and it's not a new dock.
Mhm.
It's not saying that we never do that, but it's a follow-up or not a survey, but 3-year shellfish. It does say annual monitoring report, but it's really to be the integrity of the marsh and the overwash bulkhead, not the shellfish.
Okay.
Because I think because this one was proven not to be a great shellfish habitat, I mean, I think that's why we didn't put that on there.
I'm not gonna argue with you.
And I don't think it was something we discussed at all, so I don't,
Mhm.
yeah. Any questions on that one?
I'm still unhappy with the language on fertilizers. I'm not suggesting that we do anything here about that, but I think that requires a little more discussion.
Yep, well, that's how we've done it, that's in the past, so that's how I put it here. And the product, yeah, yeah,
Isn't that a
See what I
discussion
should-
later in your agenda?
yes,
Yeah, sort of.
yeah.
I don't have any other comments about this.
So you need a motion to close the public hearing and issue the order.
Does anyone else have any comments about order of conditions? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and approve the order of conditions for 6 Borough Drive, maps 15, parcel U2-2, and 31 Mill Road, map 15, parcel U3.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is the one I couldn't vote on last time.
Right, so actually it's 501, because you weren't a member when this came.
Okay.
All right, so you don't need to sign this either, Susan. We have a form for signature. We'll have that out soon.
Okay. Thank you very much, and yes.
Thank you.
Enjoy your
Merry
cruise.
Christmas and all of that, so,
Hope you're going somewhere warm.
the Caribbean,
Oh, yeah, that sounds warm.
somewhere, I don't know, I'm not driving. All right, thank you,
Good night.
everyone, we appreciate everything that you do. and-
Thank you.
Next, we have requests for a certificate of compliance. First, 2 Old Chatham Road, map 65, parcel N6-3, SE 32-2510 for the removal of a structure and hardscape.
So I'll speak to this. The Harwich Conservation Trust acquired this property a few years ago. It had a dilapidated home on it. They got a permit to remove the home, which was in the buffer to Round Pond in the northwestern part of town. And we visited the site. Things are looking good. The shrubs that are planted are greater than a 90% survival rate. They still have their protective fencing around them for the deer. We recommend at this point that they don't need that anymore and they could take it down. They could also take their DEP sign down. And we would recommend a sort of compliance for 2 Old Chatham Road.
I'll move that we approve the request for a certificate of compliance for 2 Old Chatham Road, map 65, parcel N6-3, SE 32-2510.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
501.
All right, you don't need to sign this one then, Wayne, just pass it on. Make sure I have it right.
Next, a request for a certificate of compliance for 5 Trinity Cove, map 1, parcel E3-9, SE 32-2472 for the removal of a portion of an existing dwelling and patio, construction of addition and deck, and associated planting.
We visited the site and compared it with the plans, and we found that the structural additions and the deck are in substantial compliance with the plan. There were very small changes, which actually we think resulted in a reduction of square footage. The mitigation plantings were above 90% survival, and we've worked it out, the whole question that's written in here about the maple and spruce tree were approved with I had forgotten about this, but my permission due to degraded health and proximity of the house. So we would recommend approval of the cert of compliance for 5 Trinity Cove.
Discussion.
Question. How long ago were the plantings put in?
Over a year,
Is it over here? Okay. That long already?
yeah.
That does not seem possible. Okay. That's it.
Time flies.
Yes, it does.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the certificate of compliance for 5 Trinity Cove, map 1, parcel E3-9, SE 32-2472.
Second.
Somebody seconded it. All those in favor?
It's all Wayne.
Aye.
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 6 and 0. Okay, minutes. We read them and sent pages of.
I did not, I didn't have a thing. I read them whenever they were first sent out a while ago, and I saw nothing that,
Lisa's good?
yep, I got nothing.
Anyone else?
Excuse me.
Move to approve the minutes. November 19th.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 6 and 0. Next. Next, we have discussion and possible vote. First, a violation behind 19 Standish Woods Circle at 0 Standish Woods Circle, map 116, parcel C5-65. That's you.
Come on up.
Thank you. I drove down from Boston, so I appreciate
We
it.
appreciate it. Sorry it's
I
taken
want
us so
you
long.
to know that I take this very seriously. You and I spoke on the phone, and I appreciate it. I've owned the house for 3 years. My wife and I and our children have come down for many years in the summers, and we plan to spend more and more time here. We love the neighborhood, we love our neighbors. Have no intention of harming the environment or impacting it in a negative way, and want to be conciliatory and calm and apologetic and contrite. I thought that I could do some clearing. There was a path about 3 years ago when we bought the house that was pretty open to what was a pond. It's not so much a pond anymore, although we did get some rain this fall. And I walked down there a bunch with my dog. There are a lot of homes around the area that have much more clearings down to the water. Mine doesn't have as much. I really love the natural landscape. We don't really have views from the house anyways because we're so high up. I did some clearing. The association made note of it. They reported it. I actually have served on the board and do this as of this year. So I've been made much more aware of the bylaws and the conservation. From sitting here tonight and listening to you, although I've been in boards before through real estate development that I do in Boston, mostly retail and shopping center world. But you guys are unbelievable and spend so much time and are committed clearly to your community. It is, you spent a lot of time and a lot of effort, and a lot of this was very detailed tonight. I want to make it right. I think that the fine appears to be, trust me, if I had known, I wouldn't be here. I drove down because I'm serious about what I need to do to make it right. If I need to replant, if we need to see what regrows. I think a lot of the stuff is dead back there too. There's a bunch of dead larger trees that sit there, a bunch of tree stumps. I did remove a lot of the brush that comes from basically the start of what I guess would be the setbacks to the water area, though I stayed away from sort of the lower marsh. I believe a lot of it's gonna grow back, but we'll see what happens. I didn't remove large trees or big pine trees. I did, closer to the house, remove a lot of overhanging branches that were coming out over the deck and stuff, and then a little bit away from the house. We have a little fire pit that we light, so I wanted to clear a bunch of the brush for fire hazards. But I want to be serious about what it is, and I want to work with you, and again, I would sort of beg your mercy with regard to the fine and see what we can do to replant, restore. I can guarantee you I won't be back here for this, but I appreciate everyone's time. That's really have nothing else to add. I mean, I know you've been to the house a couple of times. I think you were there today.
Yeah, I took some commissioners there
Yeah,
today.
we love it. It's a lovely place. I love the natural landscape. I don't want to harm, although I don't know what's left for turtles that are there, but, yeah, I really have nothing else to add, except that, my intent is to spend more and more time down there and be respectful of my neighbors and the association. And as I said, I'm working on the board on the association, so, and getting to know everyone that's there, so that's really all I have to add. I appreciate everyone's time. I'm not dredging, oyster ponds or anything today.
What that has to do with
That's a
anything?
relief.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
No, so we were made aware of it, because the state had actually been contacted by the association about it, and because I didn't know about it, and the state contacted me, and I said, well, let me go check this out. So that was the first time when we went over there, and my assistant and I looked at it, and you can tell that previously, prior to your ownership, there was a path down to the pond. It's a very mossy backyard, and there was a path a couple feet wide down. But on either side of the path, there were closest to the path, there were sapling trees, greater than 2 inches in diameter, and all the understory. And closer to the water, there were mature button bushes, which are a pretty high-value wetland plant. But then, more so than just getting a path, when you looked at the kind of the outside of the clearing, there were several 6 to 8 inch plus caliper diameter trees that were removed, that had fresh cuts on them. So those, that wasn't just simply clearing path, that was, and we counted minimum of 15. I think that number was rather low, of trees that are bigger than 2 inch caliper. And we tried, and then also a lot of the trees down there were limbed up to a height of 30 or 40 feet. The trees were limbed. So it is a pretty big violation. And in terms of the understory was disturbed, really any tree or shrub in that probably 30 to 40 foot wide access swath, and I did take pictures today as well, was removed or damaged. So my recommendation, and we don't take this lightly either, and believe me, it's our least favorite thing to do, is do violations. This is consistent with how we've treated other similar violations in terms of the fine, as well as my recommendation for you to work with a professional restoration company to evaluate the health of what was cut to see if it will regrow, because I do think a lot of those stumps that we saw, I didn't see rot. It didn't seem like they were in bad shape. And I'm always a fan of letting things, like pruning things appropriately and letting them regrow, and then going to see if replanting needs to be done. So an enforcement order to that effect, to say within the next 3 to 4 months, to work with somebody, a company to evaluate that. That's all I have, sorry.
Sophia?
I think Amy's recommendations are really fair, and this is kind of par for the course, sort of, is, I guess in some way you make up for it with a donation to the conservation fund, but more importantly, what comes next is finding yourself a professional who can help you restore what was lost, which is habitat. Even the dead trees, those provide a lot of benefit for, a bunch of different reasons to wildlife and to the forest. And so if you're, really genuine about wanting to take care of the property that you have, which we're all lucky to live here and have these like little slices of really special Cape Cod forest, I think that's the best thing you can do is kind of like learn from this, learn what was lost and how you can make it right. And then also know that like part of the reason why we're here is to like balance the human side of it. Like you should be able to get to your pond, you should be able to light a fire in your fire pit without lighting the neighborhood on fire. Like, and that all of that stuff is doable, and that's what Amy is here for. And so that there's a balance to be had. I think as long as you follow what Amy's put forth, you'll be in good shape.
Just to be clear, so the fines, just so everybody knows, 'cause we have some new people too, the fines go to the general fund. They don't go to conservation. I know it is, but I have no control over that. So to me, it's more important that the land is fixed, but.
But it's a good thing because it
But-
removes any suspicion that we might be doing this.
Exactly,
Or-
there's no benefit.
We do not.
You can't go on a cruise with that money?
Yeah.
I don't know, I was thinking maybe we should donate to Mark's Cruise, what do you think?
But,
Well, I'm curious, who did the work for you? Because normally they would do it.
There was a local landscaper that did the work. I mean, I take responsibility for it. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I directed them, but
Well, we're gonna need to know who it was, because we need to talk to them too, because they're supposed to know better to do this sort of stuff. So we're gonna need to know
Yeah.
who they were.
They kind of put you in this position.
Yeah.
They should have told you no.
Yeah.
or that we needed a
I hope you didn't
permit.
shop around to find someone who told you yes after 5 people had told you no.
I did not.
Well, they all should tell you no. They all should know, and they all probably do know.
Or that they need a permit, because we do allow a path, we do allow pruning to get a better view and
Yeah.
all of that, but there's just a way to do it, so.
Anyway. you have
That was my
more to say?
question.
Okay.
I have the same question. I was going to the same place just to ask if you had engaged any firm or individual to help you with it. And, professionalism speaks for itself. They should have made you aware, and they should have been aware.
Yeah, same question for me. I mean, I feel bad for you, but at the same time, whoever did it for you, kind of put you in that, put you in.
No,
that
I hear you, and I've seen other yards near me that have a lot more cleared than I do. I've heard, and I'm not gonna throw anyone under the bus, because I don't wanna do that, but I've heard since this has happened, because I've asked around about what fines have been, and they've been significantly less than this, but I clearly don't wanna be in this position. I don't wanna violate the law. I'm not a person that gets into trouble. I wanna rectify it, but it's a lot of money. Yeah, I think what you said, someone should have said, hey, no way, go talk to conservation and get a permit to do this, or have someone come down and do it, which is what I will do if I do anything in the future. And clearly, like, I have an older deck and stuff, I'm gonna wanna do stuff. I'm gonna wanna come back and say.
And your deck may not even be within 100 feet of the edge of that wetland,
Yep.
so, but where the cutting was, but I am curious, because I've been here 14 years, I only recall finding 2 people on that pond, and it was for less.
And the other thing is, it's proportional to the number of trees that are cut as well, so not every fine is gonna be the same.
Understood.
Yeah.
First of all, and then the other thing I feel compelled to say is, we always feel bad about this. We try to bargain, and we, the commissioners, have in the past tried to bargain on your behalf to bring the number down, but to be fair to everybody, you just can't go down that road.
And the number could have been higher. I think there was far more than 15.
Yeah. so-
I mean, the only thing I would add, Amy, and I get
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
I would say that I'm willing to consult a professional and restore and do what I have to. I would, ask the board and yourself to consider lowering the fine and allowing me to work with you and do my part and restore it and be protective of it and have it be, a learning lesson for me on this. And, I've never had anything like this happen to me before, so it's like, yeah, it's a harsh lesson, And I'm not exactly a child either, so, you know, I should, again, someone should have said something to me, but I take ownership of it. I mean, I ultimately said, you know, this is what I'm trying to achieve, and, you know, so.
If I can add one thing.
I'm gonna ask you again, sir, who was the company that you hired to do that?
It was a local group, I think their last name was Champion.
Champion, okay. Champion Tree Service.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna suggest we double the fine until you told us.
No, we can't do
I
that.
know that, but I was just thinking about it.
I'd like to add one thing if I could. I mean, in a case like this, it would be my recommendation or consideration to have the owner go back to the company that aided in the violation.
I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna go
Well,
back to
that's
that.
your business, I understand, but it's just my opinion. Because, they, you know, they do bear responsibility for knowing the regulations and.
No, we will reach out to
Strongly
Champion.
advise.
We will reach out to Champion.
Okay. I don't have anything.
And
to
our
say.
goal is to educate. If it is that company knows better.
Well, there were clearly some big machine in there, because they couldn't get up that tree 30 or 40 feet with that machine unless they had.
I mean, you can see if you back there, there were a lot of like stumps and older trees. that were
Older
moved. There's
trees,
a couple of
yes, yep.
large ones that are sitting there dead, that are not
Yep.
moved or impacted. They're
Yep.
they're just dead and sitting there.
Mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm.
Okay, so what are our actions here? If we do nothing, the fine stays in place, or do we have to vote to?
Well, the fine is in place, but it always is helpful if you vote to, approve of that action that I took on your behalf. And then the other part is to, so by March 3rd, I had recommended that they hire a professional consultant to evaluate what was cut and come up with a restoration planting plan to be presented and approved by March 3rd.
do you have a recommendation for who?
I can give you, do I have your email?
I
think I
you
do.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think you do, yeah.
I know I have your phone number, so I'll be in touch. We can't make recommendations, but I have a list of companies who traditionally do this type of work.
This is very similar to the one we had on Great Western Road not too long ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we did not lower the fine on that one,
Back on
and it was about the same amount of money,
That was the one
roughly.
I
I've
was
forgotten what
referencing.
it was exactly, but,
It was very similar, yeah.
yeah. So I don't see any reason to,
That's the
we
one I
gotta be
was referencing.
consistent. If you're gonna fine people, you need to be consistent. Good way to get in trouble by not being.
I also think that like if word on the street or word on the neighborhood is like, oh, it's not that bad of a fine, we've paid it, it's $500, it's whatever, like that's like, you know, I
Yeah.
think that.
That's the
it
cost
is-
of doing business.
Yeah, exactly, and that's unacceptable, and the mitigation for this is gonna cost you even more money, and I don't know what your relationship is with the service provider, but like, that was an incredibly unprofessional thing for them to do, that's gonna cost you a lot of money, so I would recommend that you, like, have them take some responsibility for it. It's the right thing for them to do, I know you're trying to protect them, but at the same time, like, that's, their job is to do the right thing in these circumstances, and like, anybody in the industry knows this.
Yeah.
So.
I recognize that, but I mean, again,
Mhm.
I'm the homeowner, I directed them, so I'm taking ownership of it. I'm here, I drove down, I'm here to talk to you guys, like, it's not gonna happen again, I can tell you that. I'm not happy about the fine, I thought that maybe there would be some lenience on it, but I get what you're saying, you know, and what you're saying, cost of doing business.
Yeah.
You'll have a lot of people, or they'll just say, all right, you know, it's a $500 fine, I'll just do it, but it's definitely not a $500 fine, so.
There is an appeal process. I mean, I can tell you that. It's on the back of the ticket,
Yeah.
to appeal that.
Right. I'm gonna, I think I've made my feelings very clear. None of us want to do this, but rather than shy away from this, I'm gonna be one to make the motion to approve the fine. What I do know about Amy is that she's fair. In the year and a half that I've been working here with her, I know she's very fair, and so I don't think that's an inflated fine. I think that's probably a very fair number, so I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you for your time.
What about the
There's a
second,
motion
no,
that needs to be
there's the
made.
second part about the,
That was March 3rd.
enforcement for, hiring a professional consultant, and I'll, by the end of the week, give you a list of folks who do this type of work.
What's the date, March what?
March 3rd. So it is a little bit of an aggressive timeline. I just ask that you just stay in touch with the progress that you're making on that. And we can discuss as that happens, if that's feasible or not. But we do like to do fairly aggressive timelines and see if it can be done. So, and that is really to capture, if there is planting to be done, to capture the spring growing season. So, March 3rd, and this will all be put in writing to you as well by the end of the week, to hire somebody to evaluate what was cut and come up with a restoration planting plan to be presented and approved to the commission. But I'll put all that in writing to you.
And I can reach out to you as well, so.
Of course.
You need a motion to that effect?
Yes, please.
So I move what Amy just said.
That works. It's fine.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for coming
Thanks,
down.
Happy holidays to everyone.
You too.
Okay. Next, we have discussion and possible vote on a draft warrant article for licensing and reporting requirements for landscape fertilizer and plant nutrient application. Shall I start on this? We also have
It was yeah, go for it.
Diana Preston here, who helped me write the current version, but I will, really, she wrote the draft. I'll just reiterate, talk a little bit about this. I brought a draft warrant article, or it wasn't even a warrant article, it was just a draft bylaw, maybe January or February of this year, addressing the issue of registering and requiring reporting from landscape applicators, people who apply plant nutrients, fertilizers, related things to, I think the thing that I wrote earlier in the year was to any property, and it didn't address agricultural land. The current thing addresses both agricultural land and turf lawns, non-agricultural turf lawns. And I think I said pretty clearly when I first brought this idea up here why it was in reaction to a specific thing that happened here when we were reconsidering actions to be taken on a property where we had approved an order of conditions, and there was a request from the landscaper there for us to approve an application of a product which I thought was very inappropriate at the time. It was a product called Superpeed, which by my calculation resulted in a minimum of 5 times the amount of nitrogen that is generally recommended or required by the state to be applied in a year. And I have since become convinced that that's not an unusual practice in this town. I know that we were all aware that there have been attempts over the past several years to simply, in some fashion or another, ban the use of fertilizers under various circumstances in town. And those proposals haven't gotten very far for various reasons, which we could discuss, but I don't know if it's worth discussing that. My feeling is that we need to shed some light on what's actually being done in town, and that's kind of hard to do. I mean, we struggle with this in cases like the one we just had here, where somebody does something that They either don't know that it's wrong, or they don't think they have to pay attention, or in this case, probably both things are happening on the part of the homeowner and the service provider. I think requiring reporting forces the professionals to contend with what the actual requirements are, and contend with the fact that they have to report what they're doing to the town, and there will be light shed on it. But there's another piece of the puzzle, which I think is at least as important, which is that we're having a lot of problems in ponds in towns today, where there are algae blooms happening for reasons that people don't understand, and Hinckley's is a stark example of that, in that there was an alum treatment 5 or 6 years ago that was supposed to suppress the algae blooms, and it hasn't worked as was intended, and we don't know why. But there are certainly circumstantial reports of people over-fertilizing lawns, and the town doesn't know anything about that. There's no way of verifying what people are putting on their lawns, and nutrient-heavy soil amendments, particularly on large turf lawns, and there are expensive homes with large turf lawns around probably every significant pond in town, including Hinckley's Pond, and I think that if we require reporting, that there's the opportunity to gather real data about what is actually being done in town, and maybe down the road, if this becomes law and becomes accepted practice in town, there's an opportunity to correlate events like unexpected algae blooms with what is being done on properties around freshwater ponds. And I think that's a very important thing. I think in the past, when assessment of the contribution of fertilizer applications to nutrient loading in our waterways, when that has happened in the past, it's been, I would call it ad hoc and anecdotal. That is not hard, provable data. It's assumptions and estimates. And we don't really know how accurate any of that is. So I'm a very strong advocate of making reporting a requirement. And if you look at the language in here, a lot of the language is taken directly out of state regulations. And Diana made a concerted effort to not depart significantly from what the state already requires, just apply those requirements to reporting in town, and attempting to create a strong incentive for people who are in the business of treating people's lawns to prove that they are actually qualified to do what they're doing by getting a license and show that they have training, and also demonstrate that they're aware of what the state actually requires by putting that language into a town bylaw. Now, from my point of view, there's definitely a downside to this, in which it creates a burden for somebody in town. And this draft here cites the health department, and the health department has, there's already a basis in state law for the health department to be the party in town who is responsible for the health effects or environmental effects of fertilizer and related things on lawns, and that would require some additional work on the part of the health department. How much work is a matter of discussion. We actually, earlier this week, opened that discussion with the health department, with Carrie and Terry and Amy and Meg, Diane and I met with them. This effort, I initiated this effort almost a year ago. It's not really at the moment an effort of the Harwich Ponds Coalition, even though my collaboration with Diana really flows out of both of our involvement in the Harwich Ponds Coalition. This is going to be an item of further discussion in the Harwich Ponds Coalition. The Harwich Ponds Coalition is not at the moment sponsoring this or advocating this.
No, but Patrick and I met with the Board of Health back on November 18th, and Carrie's definitely aware of multiple conversations going on.
So, and I would love to see the Conservation Commission explicitly support this. I don't think, I'm not asking the Conservation Commission to do that tonight. I'm asking the Conservation Commission to seriously consider what is here, provide feedback if you have feedback to provide, and Amy says we need to have a public hearing about this before we vote, before we consider voting, I guess is a better way to put it, not really support it, but I guess I've said my piece. I don't know whether Diana has anything to add, but also I would really like, maybe we'll let Diana add
Come on up.
her bit, and then I
Whatever you prefer, as long as you're near a mic.
Okay, that's not over.
identify yourself.
Diana Preston. I am a member of the Harwich Ponds Coalition Board, but as John said, not speaking, we're on behalf of that, our president is also here, but we haven't had a chance to consider this yet. So we've been working on this. When John had mentioned that he was working on this idea about reporting fertilizer use in town, I was intrigued because I thought it was really important to gather that data, to figure out, we know that things are happening. We have cyanobacteria blooms. We've had E. coli contamination incidents. How do we best go about solving these problems? I think the data will be very helpful. So that's why I was very supportive from the beginning. And then I started thinking about, and I realized I had had an experience with a fertilizer application on my lawn. So it was an organic fertilizer application, and it ended up with mushrooms in various parts of my yard. So I think when I started researching that, it could be a sign of soil health, but to me it was a sign of too much fertilizer. So I focus on this also in terms of getting education to the people, to the landscapers, as well as the homeowners about what is going on with fertilizer, how it can be used appropriately, and I think it was looking at it as a very educational effort, because I think the landscaper, I don't think it was, I think it was just a mistake. So, but if the landscapers are experimenting with things like organic fertilizers and they don't know what it is and how to use it, that's an issue. So one thing that I discovered was the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension has a fertilizer applicator certification that could be hopefully an affordable solution for the landscapers to get education about using the fertilizer. And the other piece of that is they also have other programs. So if landscapers want to sort of up their services, they have like a master gardener and other programs, so it'd be nice to get exposure for that program for them. So I think I look at this as very much gathering data to hopefully help us solve the problems in the future, as well as education and making sure that the town and the residents and the landscapers and everyone else is sort of on the same page with using fertilizer responsibly, so that we can protect our waters and hopefully prevent future occurrences of cyanobacteria and E. coli contamination. So I think it's important. I support this. I think there are other efforts. As Susan said, I know there's another effort. I think I'd actually talk to Patrick and see whether or not there might be ways that these can be used complementarily. But I do think that getting that data will help the town, will help the waters, will help the landscapers to get education. So that's sort of my 2 cents worth.
Thank you. So, comments?
Staring right in the middle. I look forward to genuinely putting some time into this, and I really appreciate the time that you put into it and everybody has. Like, it's very much an important issue. On its face, like, as a business owner and like as somebody in the industry, I don't do turf treatments, but this is a significant burden, I think, on a small business owner. I think this is a lot of reporting, and I don't object to it. Like, I go to the trouble of getting myself certifications and things like that, and, I do soil tests and whatever. But it's kind of up to me to navigate that, and I understand that something more needs to be done in our situation on the Cape, and I appreciate that very much. I think that there is going to be an issue of buy-in from the industry, and I think that that's a problem that can be solved with some collaboration and some communication and find where the holes. I think, a lot of people in the industry really like to be seen as like professionals, and, there's a pride in, people who care, and they will do that themselves. So it's like, I think I don't know, I want to think about this more. I'm curious if Russ Morton has seen this. I don't like having compost on here. I totally get your issue with the enhanced compost products, but like going to a Cape Sand, or, not all of them test their compost regularly. Perhaps they should. I don't know how accurate it's going to be for like even S&J, who does, like, they are really careful with the way they do compost. I would trust their composter for anyone just because of the way they process it. I don't know that their compost, if they, how often they would have to test it for it to be accurate. So there are holes in it for me where, like, I think that is perhaps an unreasonable standard to meet. I don't love, I get the extra fees, but like, I have such a small company, and there's so much stuff I have to do, and it just like, I know this is an important topic, and it deserves some solutions, and I don't have anything helpful to say, but I was just venting.
I'm gonna wait, I have questions about what you said, but I'm gonna wait, hear what other people have to say. Go ahead.
Obviously, I'm for doing something. I thank you for your very honest response, because that is my concern, is the acceptance, and I do think whatever we do, we need to socialize it with the Russ Norton, the local landscapers. Like, we need buy-in, I think, even before we get to the warrant article. So, we'll talk about that later.
Please.
Well, interesting you should ask. I'm not a supporter of additional reporting, licensing, and restriction. I am an advocate supporter of education. I think the energy is better spent on a county-wide educational blitz to, number one, get people to understand the problem and understand some very significant facts about it. Regulations that are written by amateurs generally are full of holes, and it requires an awful lot of thought, and an awful lot of burden for members of the green industry. And the quest for a green lawn is not going to go away, not anytime soon, that's for certain. I think the options of native planting, native species, soil health, soil testing, all of those combined details need to be more publicly dispersed to develop awareness. This conversation takes me back to hearing we went through quite some time ago, and it was related to the Colebrook Restoration Project. And I asked a question back then because the term kept coming up, and it has come up in other wetlands restoration projects, nitrogen attenuation. And I asked the engineer one night here, where's the research? Where are the test wells? They mentioned, I think there was 250 homes that probably would not require sewering because of the work being done down there. And after somewhat of a discussion, the answer was that it is somewhat of a leap of faith. I don't find that to be an acceptable answer. And I think we're headed right back to the same place here, where part of this is apt to be a leap of faith until the public is educated and versed enough to understand it and make a decision to do something different. So I'll stop with that for a moment.
I'm curious on the county, excuse me, on the countywide, I find that interesting because.
Cape Cod is a county all
Yeah,
unto itself,
your thing, okay.
and everybody has the same concerns. And I don't think there's anybody in Barnstable County that would begin to try to diminish the importance of water quality or the detriment that's going on. Look around.
No, that's
know?
what's so frustrating though, is some of the other towns have already passed formal petitions on fertilizers and pesticides. And one of my frustrations is it's so inconsistent town to town.
So my question there is it working? Is it helping? Is it making any difference in that town? I'm not seeing any evidence of that. There's already regulations on the book through the Mass Department of Agriculture regarding this. Application services are a commercial entity. They're going to be respectful of the regulation, but they're also looking for the best result because they're trying to sell business. Okay? The educated consumer is probably going to be the strongest individual to help the regulation and be effective. Just a little while ago, sat right here and issued a fine to a gentleman over a circumstance. If the contractors involved were held accountable, well, you'd probably see less of it. You're not going to stamp out all the deadbeats. You're not going to stamp out all the fly-by-nights. There's always going to be somebody. And whether it's somebody that does tree work or somebody that does lawn service, they're out there. It's going to happen. People are people.
Okay.
I'll try to keep it brief. I don't even, we could be here all night. I know what Ross would say. He would say that 80% of the nutrients, or the nitrogen rather, is coming from septic system. That's the first thing, I know, because I heard her say it at a, for what it's worth, I'm not disagreeing with you, John, but I think it's just, it's a can of worms. The other thing is is it the Cape Cod Landscape Association? Is that, all those guys will tell you that they're not the ones that need to be regulated or data collected on. It's the rest of the folks in the Wild West or whatever who are doing it. I do think it's a good start. It's a better start than making a blanket sort of statement about banning fertilizers across the town. I don't feel knowledgeable enough to do that. I think it's a good start. I think I have more homework to do on this. Is my honest.
Last year, we had a couple of meetings here with commercial landscapers and.
Great.
Yeah, and the general theme was, at least the feedback we got from them all, is the guys that are professional,
Yeah.
pay attention and do it right. It's the, as you put it, the fly-by-nights, but also it's the happy homeowners. You know, all you gotta do is look around in the springtime down at any hardware store and watch them walk out with bag after bag of Milorganite, or what's the four-step program there? And they just take it home willy-nilly and throw it on their lawns. I mean, how are you gonna stop them? How are you gonna get them to, do something, write it down or report it to the Board of Health? I agree, John, that we do have a problem, and that pond can be in trouble. And I worry about our drinking water, because we're a sole source aquifer here. But I don't know, I've been lost on how to do it, really, I am.
Okay, I have some responses to some of these points, and I'm gonna make them. I don't wanna spend all night here, but I gotta say a few more things. One is, some of the people who say they're very adamant about how they follow the rules, they understand, you have to understand soil chemistry. Spend a little more time talking to those people, and you find out that what they're doing is very explicitly and blatantly violating all the advice that the state gives. So I just don't buy that argument anymore. It sounds compelling, but I don't think, I just don't buy that argument anymore. I don't think it's the right argument. And that's, you're echoing the other thing that we hear all the time here in town meeting when this comes up, is it's just the homeowners. Well, I agree. Homeowners going and doing stuff, they don't know what they're doing, that's a problem. But a bigger problem is the professionals who are supposed to know what they're doing, who are rationalizing to themselves and perhaps to their customers how bright green they're making their lawns because they're using some organic product. When you dig into what the organic product is, and it is grossly violating all the advice, they're over-fertilizing. They say they would never put too much fertilizer on because it costs too much money, but that's not what they're doing. They're putting on too much fertilizer. And we had a very blatant example of that before us a year ago. And you, my colleagues, decided to ignore the fact that that's what was happening. And that triggered me. I mean, that really triggered me. So that's one thing. Now, Sophia, you were saying reporting requirements. So, I mean, you were saying you have too much to do, and I buy that. You're a small business. You're probably already stressed. You have more to do than you have time to do. I get that. But the state actually requires you to keep records for application of fertilizer on turf lawns. I have no idea, no clue to what extent those requirements are followed. I know I've heard assurance, and I don't know if they apply to you at all because you don't manage turf. So, and in fact, if you read this, you may find that nothing in there applies to what you do. I don't know. I'd like to hear back from you whether you feel like if that were word for word, if it were to become a bylaw, how would that impact your business actually? And other than your sympathy for someone else who's also a struggling small business person who happens to be part of their business is treating lawns. But people are treating lawns and putting a lot of stuff on those lawns. And either willfully or inadvertently ignoring how what they're doing correlates to what the state tells them what they're supposed to do. Why shouldn't we require them to report to us what they're doing? They're making a living, violating state law. And I know that's strong language, and if you prove me wrong, then I'll back off. I don't think I'm wrong. But I don't know how that's different from a guy who had, trees cut down where it was clearly a violation of the state environmental law and local environmental law. And we potentially have a lot of people doing that in this town. And it seems to be the least invasive way of addressing that is just require people to tell us what they're doing. Where they're already required by the state to keep records of what they're doing. And if they're not doing that, and so making this requirement to them would place an additional burden on them, well, that's too bad because the state already requires them to be doing this. Why wouldn't we just put a fine point on that requirement by making it part of our municipal law? That is my whole point. We're not telling them they can't apply fertilizer. We're not. We're just telling them they have to tell us what they're doing. And taxpayers, you know, how much of your tax has gone up because we have to pay for sewer? And part of the impact is from what people put on norms, and we don't actually know the extent of that impact. All we had is a bunch of finger-in-the-wind estimates that were done 10 or 15 years ago about what the impact is.
So, John, you're suggesting town-wide applicators, they report what they do, right?
That's all.
Okay, but how do you hold them accountable?
Well, right, how do you hold them accountable? Well, you make a big deal out of the requirement, and there are big concerns, and I think there have to be some examples made. Clearly, the health department, or nobody else in town, is going to follow these people around and see what they're doing.
No, of course not.
But how do you hold people accountable who cut too many trees down too close to wetlands? You know, Amy isn't out watching everybody. People call her up and let her know one way or another, and when we find out that's happening, you know, the fines happen, and a guy like this, you know, has a sobering experience where he figures, he finds out he can't just do what he needs to do. And clearly, we have to do something as town about this problem. We have to address the problem. If for no other reason than some significant slice of taxpayers in this town are very concerned about this problem. Say what you may about the basis for their concerns. I think there is some basis for this concern. We have to address the concern somehow. And this, to me, is the best we can do. And I think it is. I mean, we've heard every time Patrick has brought his thing to town meeting, one of the prominent responses from politicians, from other local advocates in town is, oh, education is the key. So we've actually been trying to address that. It's hard to get even people into the room. And you're saying, well, the county has to do something, but how do we get the county to do something? What is it? I mean, in the end, nothing happens. Nothing happens unless somebody takes it on to make it happen.
So can I just summarize, because I want to make sure we're clear on the ask for everybody. So we'd like to reinforce the state guideline, because in theory, they should be reporting it already. So
Well,
putting something out
actually-
there saying the town's behind it.
Excuse me, it's just keeping records and making them available when, if ever, the state asks to access the
So
records.
reminding them of what's there now. The second ask is sending it into, you're saying like Board of Health or somebody. So that's an ask on the table, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And then the third one is getting at the data, which I know you're all about the data, but my question, like, are we expecting whoever's receiving all these records to then be collecting and reporting on the data? There's a lot of asks in there, so I just want to make sure we're really clear on what.
There's also the ask of the licensing through the town of Harwich.
Right, and the licensing, sorry. Right now, that's not a thing.
No, it's not a thing.
So there's a lot of asks in there, so and I need to go back and read it, because I read it really quickly this afternoon, but you probably want to be a little clearer on that, either come back to this group or figure out I'm not sure where Carrie's head is, but there's a lot of meaty asks in there, which some of them might hang people up more than others. So just,
It would be,
did I miss anything? Is there any other asks in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
it would be really great if you read it seriously, thought about how you could change to make it
No, I need to, yeah, no, I agree.
less of an imposition, but still accomplish the goal, which is collecting that data. And I know how big a burden that is. It's like the pond data. That data's all there.
Yeah, but we don't deal with it, we deal with it on maps, I mean.
Well,
right?
no, we get it back,
I get, yeah,
and we can analyze it and try to, I personally think that it's more clear in this case what you could do with that data.
Oh, totally agree, yeah.
So, and if it's in a spreadsheet on a disk in town, that's available potentially for people to access, and just say, check it against the Horsley-Witten estimates of, how much of what goes into our waterways from fertilizer. And I don't think that's a simple thing, but, I did talk for quite a while to Russ about this. I had an hour-long phone conversation with him about these topics. I think, but I'm not entirely sure that I sent him the thing that I wrote at the beginning of the year. But one of the things he said to me very clearly was, we don't have we don't have quality data about really. We don't really know how much stuff is actually put on the land on Cape Cod. Even enough information about that to make some intelligent and informed estimates about how much of that gets into our waterways. And, we're sort of backwards engineering an estimate of what gets into the waterways from somebody's estimates about what gets sold in stores and wholesale to landscapers without a lot of knowledge about what actually gets done. And if you had hard data that's reported, and you can ask, is what is written there, would that result in a lot of good, hard, reliable data? Well, that's a good question, but I think we should be addressing that.
Can I just make one last point? I would just encourage you, whatever you decide to do, is to continue to have active conversation with the health department, 'cause especially if they're gonna be any sort of taking responsibility for the reporting or gathering or licensing or anything like that. So I know we met the other day, they said that they were in the process of maybe developing either guidelines or regulations themselves, so trying to work with and, so we're trying to come to a common goal, so just staying in, and I'll try to stay in contact with them too, so if they're starting to put out drafts of anything that they're thinking of, I'll certainly let everybody know, but if, yeah.
So, she suggested that we should talk to the Board of Health.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
intend that we do that
Right,
sooner rather than
that we have a joint meeting, potentially.
Yeah, I mean,
Work
one of
session.
One of the outcomes of the November 18th meeting was, because I haven't heard back from the select board on getting them to sort of certify a town-wide task force.
Yeah.
We just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Like Board of Health, us, any other interested people we know are
Yeah.
passionate about this, landscapers, Cranberry Farm, like whatever, like bring in the local people that,
Yeah, stakeholder group.
Yeah, I think it's like imperative that you include
You have to.
some sections of the people who you're asking to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to, like, you go to the Cape Cod Landscape Association, they're, professionals in town, whatever. Without that, it becomes a little bit of an attack. And this is a big ask. I think there's a way to whittle it down to make it more reasonable and still get good data. That what we're after is data, then I think that's doable.
It's not just data, it's holding people who do this
But we
as a
don't have the data,
profession
we don't.
accountable for what they're doing.
I think also letting people
I know
know
that,
that it's
I know that's an
dangerous.
offensive statement to make, but I'm sorry.
But who does that?
yeah, that's,
Well, but it partly, mind you, it's self-policing. That is, once you make it a thing that people have to report, I mean, I suppose people can just make up numbers and submit them to town, but, I think we have to have some faith in human nature and some faith in good intentions and make, if the town at least starts making it clear in a way that I don't think it's clear right now, that the town expects anyone who is doing this for a business is actually diligently following what the state says they should be doing. I think that's like a minimum ask. Why should we be imposing that requirement on people? Please, don't go to somebody, sell them a product that results in way over application of nutrients that potentially going to end up in some pond or in saltwater estuaries, exacerbating something that's already a huge problem in town. Why is trying to hold people accountable to avoid doing that, at least to the extent that the state requires them to avoid doing that, why shouldn't we be doing that?
Do we know what the state requirements are? I don't think I've ever seen them as far as grass fertilizer and whatnot.
The state has some requirements, and the state points to UMass Extension.
Yeah.
And UMass Extension has an involved document, but it gets boiled down to, and on nitrogen, it has a little table that has various scenarios, and part of the problematic thing about it is, part of the text there says, well, it's impossible actually to reliably measure the amount of nitrogen in northeastern soils of the northeast U.S. However, this is what we recommend you to do in order to avoid over-applying specifically nitrogen to soils. And they have a table, and if you look at those tables, it's anywhere from 1 to 4 pounds per 1,000 square feet total per year. You should never be applying any more than that. And when I read something, when you do the arithmetic, and the result is they're applying 22 pounds per 1,000 square feet, clearly the person who's doing that is ignoring, at least, what the state tells them what they're supposed to do. And there's a huge potential there for polluting our waterways. So we should be attempting to stop people from doing that. And requiring people to report exactly what they're doing so that anybody can look at what they've reported and deduce quickly and easily how much nitrogen they're applying to the soils, that's a step. It doesn't stop them from over-applying, but at least someone can look at that and point them out and saying, you're not doing this right, you should not. And for us, it's our responsibility. Basically, our regulations say that within 100 feet of wetlands, you can't put any of that on lawn. And when people are putting some organic thing and telling us, well, it's okay, it's organic, and actually what they're doing is applying 22 pounds per 1,000 square feet of some soil amendment, we need that information. We need to be able to point that out to them and tell them you can't do that. And we're not really in that position right now.
It's getting late, but is there, is this putting the cart before the horse a little bit? Because I feel like we had this conversation before where, do people even know? And I'm not using this as an excuse, but I just imagine it almost make more sense to go around, stick signs in people's yards with a QR code and say, click on this to find, do people actually realize that putting all that on their lawn is so detrimental to any kind of waterway?
No.
Would you not want to start there first? And I know, again, I don't want to flog a dead horse here, because we had this conversation months ago, but it just seems to me that I don't disagree with the sentiment, John, but I don't even know that people, even some of these landscapers, realize what the consequences are of over-fertilizing or getting that, monoculture, bowling green effect that you see in a lot of places. Is there, and again, it's kind of a rhetorical question, not one that we're going to answer now at 9:15, but I wonder, is there a way to take a step back and say, what would be a more practical beginning to this, to say, just simple, stop over-fertilizing your lawn. The royal you, stop over, whether it be your landscaper or the individual homeowner? Because I think you would be surprised at how, correct me if I'm wrong, how people don't necessarily make that connection. Even the landscapers who are putting that stuff down, they're not thinking that this is gonna eventually leach into whatever water is closest to that. People just don't make that connection often, so, I mean.
How are you suggesting educating everybody in town?
Well, if
about
you're
this?
saying that it's our job to, hold people accountable and collect data, then isn't it then our job also to say, hey, guess what, like, here's a flyer, here's a, find some money to put things on people's doors to say, I think we said this ages ago, 5 questions you should ask your landscaper, or 5 things you should know about where all this crap goes when you put it on your lawn willy-nilly. Like, that to me feels like a more practical start. And also, it's not telling people, you need to do this, or we're gonna we're gonna fine you this, or you need to go to school and get this. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think that, is there a way to sort of
I think you can,
dial it back?
all those things are good. The Harwich Ponds Coalition is doing something along the lines of what you say. We're encouraging people to become members. You don't have to live next to a pond to become a member of the Harwich Ponds Coalition. And for a paltry sum, you can buy a sign that you put in your front lawn that says you signed a pond pledge. And part of signing the pond pledge is learning the consequences of putting fertilizer on your lawn. So we're trying to do that. And I don't know how many signs that we have distributed. It's
Ocean Pledge.
not that many. I think if there are things that the Harwich Conservation Commission or a conservation department can do along those lines, it's fine. I think that public education is a huge thing. We're in the middle of a social media upheaval in this country where there isn't a common communication channel to everybody that really exists anymore. I mean, we have a local newspaper, and yeah, maybe we should put ads and articles in the local newspaper. And all those things we should be doing. It doesn't change my conviction that part of that process, which should start sooner rather than later, is forcing people who do this for a living to confront in whatever way is necessary the reality that what they're doing is potentially causing big problems. And please, for a start, just obey state law. I mean, why shouldn't we be making that point now? What possible reason is there to wait? And even just introducing a bylaw like this, I think, makes that point, because we've had this argument about fertilizers, but I don't remember hearing anywhere in that argument that actually there's a law that people have to, or are supposed to, comply with as far as that goes.
All right, so I move that you wanted to bring this to the table, have everyone think about it. You weren't looking for everyone to vote.
Correct.
Okay. I think the discussion for tonight, I'd suggest we end it, everyone go home and think of it. We'll go back and sort of rework the wording in this. I think it was a good discussion.
Okay, so it is, and we have 3 more items on the agenda. So let's just
I'll
move
be
to
real
those.
fast.
What?
I'll be real fast on the next 3.
Okay.
Well, at least 2 of
One
them.
is discussion possible vote for notification of gas line maintenance work on Route 28.
N-Grid wants to repair or replace 20 feet of gas line right at the Herring River Bridge, and I just encourage them to be in touch with the water department, who's also doing road work, and MassDOT, who's doing sidewalk work, before they go do it. They don't have to apply to you because they're a public utility. It's pretty much, it's right alongside the roadway in the sidewalk area that they plan on doing the work. So I'm notifying you that they notified you.
Okay, road treatment.
Salt, that's a big thing for me.
Hang on, you have a question about the gas
Regarding
line?
utilities, yeah. Would that be applicable to the power company also? Because a few months back, they were doing some work on Lothrop Avenue, because there's a main line going down through there, and I don't recall hearing anything about that through Conscom, but I would assume, being a public utility, they pretty much had the ability to do that.
They did, in the groundwork.
Yeah.
Yes. So they did, there was something on Lothrop that they notified us previously on, and it was within the road itself.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Can I do the grant one real quick before we do road salt? So, we're looking for more money every chance that we get. One of the ones that has come up, and you don't have to vote, but I hope you do support it, is we're putting in a grant that we'd love actually Sophia to look at. It's a pollinator pathway grant in order to install 6 pollinator gardens at publicly visible places around town. So for the materials, watering, you know, or whatever's needed, so, that's due at the end of December, and we hope to get that, and Meg has drafted it. I don't wanna waste, I'd spend a lot of time on it tonight, but if I send it, or I can send it to all of you to take a look at, and if you have any input specifically in regards to pricing for some things, cause it was just a guess, that would be very helpful. One of the places would be outside of Town Hall in some of these islands that are full of mulch and yucca. So,
So is there a specific?
it is for, yeah, Department of Fish and Game, state grant. And then we're continuously looking for other grant money for other things that I will regale you with at another time that are not imminent. So, road treatment.
Can we get a highway director in here?
He said no.
He said no, he won't come in and talk to us.
He said he,
Go on,
just to be
social media,
honest,
make it
no,
all-
hold on. I did ask, and he said respectfully that he is accountable to the select board and not other entities. And I said, would you at least answer some questions that we have? And you do have that in front of you. So, if you wanted him to come in front of you, I think the path is to engage the select board if you wanted to. But this is what it is right now.
What do you think about it, Amy, like, about this response, and like the reasoning behind why we're asking?
I think the reason that you're asking is a good reason, in terms of, especially, because of all the water quality issues that we're having here, and because of the detriment, and I don't have the data, if we could get it, that would be great, that especially, you know, road salt going into, water bodies, what kind of negative impacts that can have. So, I can't control another department head.
Right.
And, so, if there are I'd be interested in seeing what other communities nearby do, in terms of their practices. I don't wanna like overstep my bounds there by, you know, going above anything. But, yeah, are there any more environmentally friendly ways that we could potentially?
Well, one thing, you know, go back to the 50s and 60s, when I was around in the 70s, they always mixed sand with the salt. And it was usually about maybe 10% salt, the rest of it was sand. And the sand is used for traction, plus also when the sun comes out, the sand on the road, it warms up the grains of sand and melts off the ice or snow or whatever. The salt is there also to keep the sand from freezing in the trucks and all that stuff. But now, they have eliminated the sand, it's been quite a few years, they haven't used it.
Yeah.
I mean, they used it right up into the late 70s when I was still plowing snow for the town. We used to have to go to, you know, haul sand in there after every big snowstorm and just stockpile it at the highway department. But now they just use straight salt. It's just, you know, you've seen it, we've all seen it, after a snowstorm or an ice event, and once the road dries, you look down the road and it's pure white.
Yeah.
You know, that's salt. and then it rains, and guess where it all goes? Either washes into, like Amy said, in the water body, or it goes in catch basins, which are right in the ground, it goes right down through the ground, and our porous soils that we have, sandy soils, go right into the water.
Are there any other towns on the Cape that?
I don't know,
You-
I
you
haven't,
don't know.
I have not
I
reached
know,
out
I
yet.
saw Concord's off Cape, the town of Concord has low salt, they don't do, I don't know any more details other than that, but they have a restriction, I think, on how much salt they use for that, but.
I can reach out to the pond coalitions.
So anyway, that's an issue.
So it's up to you how you wanna deal with it. As a coworker, I wouldn't, like, it'd be a letter, if you wanted to ask him or the select board, it would be good coming from yourselves as a board.
Yeah, I see your point there, yeah.
Yeah, I think that, like, there is a lot of research that's out there. There are other towns that have done other things. I think it's really expensive to do other options, to his point. He's getting great results because he's using a ton, literally tons of salt.
Mhm.
And he's proud of that, and I think we wanna, like, respect that he's doing a good job, but there are alternatives, and, like, I feel like maybe more people would be interested in, like, that being use of town money, especially if it affects, like, the, you know, marsh's ability to soak up nitrogen, you know, it's like that type of interaction that I think we should be especially interested in, so.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
do you have information about that?
I could send you what I sent Amy, which was just some Googled
Yep.
stuff, yeah?
Okay, well, I'm gonna make a motion.
I have that information that I can send. I didn't include it on this, I should have, but yeah.
I'm gonna make a motion, we adjourn the meeting of, December 3rd of the Harwich Conservation Commission.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye, aye, aye.
Really?
Enough of the